The nurse had one hand on the rail of Claire's bed and the other on a clipboard. "Who should the surgeon call when she's out?" she asked. "Your father?" Claire looked past me toward the empty doorway. Her face was gray with pain, and there was a plastic bracelet around the wrist I had held for the last 3 hours. "Call Evan," she said. "We haven't been able to reach him. Try again. He's my husband." Her eyes flicked toward me. "Daniel is only my father." The nurse stopped writing. I was standing close enough to touch my daughter's shoulder, close enough to see the little crescent-shaped scar beneath her chin from when she fell off her bike at 11. Close enough to know she was scared because she kept rubbing her left thumb across the side of her index finger. I had driven through the rain, answered every question, remembered every medication, and held the basin while she threw up. Evan had not answered his phone once, but I was only her father. Then Claire reached for my hand. "You'll still be here when I wake up, right?" 3 hours earlier, I had been asleep in my recliner with a documentary about sinkholes playing quietly on the television. At 63, I could fall asleep during anything except a phone ringing after midnight. There's a particular sound a phone makes at that hour, even when the ringtone is the same one you hear all day. It comes with weight. I woke before the second ring and nearly knocked a glass of water off the side table. "Hello? Is this Daniel Mercer?" "Yes, this is St. Vincent Medical Center. Your daughter, Claire Mercer Bennett, has been brought into our emergency department." My body stood up before my mind did. "What happened?" "She's conscious and speaking with the medical team. You're listed as her emergency contact. I'm coming." The woman started telling me which entrance to use, but I was already looking for my jeans. I wrote the number 4 on the back of an unopened electric bill because she said level 4 parking. By the time I found my shoes, I couldn't remember whether the 4 meant the parking level or the floor Claire was on. I called Claire as I grabbed my keys. No answer. I called Evan, straight to voicemail. "Evan, it's Daniel. The hospital called me about Claire. Call me." I made it halfway to the front door before turning around. Claire hated hospitals. More specifically, she hated being unprepared in hospitals. She had once described the standard gown as a paper towel with ambition. I found an old canvas bag in the hall closet and put in a clean t-shirt, sweatpants, a toothbrush still in its package, a phone charger, and the thick socks she always stole from me when she visited. I added the blue insurance folder she had left at my house 6 months earlier after asking me to compare plans. It was still raining when I pulled out of the driveway. Not a storm, just a steady cold rain that made every red light look smeared across the windshield. I called Evan again. Voicemail. Claire and Evan lived 15 minutes from the hospital. I lived 38 minutes away if every light cooperated, and no light ever cooperated when you needed it to. At one intersection, I sat alone beneath a red signal, with no cars coming in either direction. I remember gripping the wheel and saying, "Come on," like the light was a stubborn person who might respond to tone. The emergency department smelled like floor cleaner and burnt coffee. A security guard pointed me toward a desk, where a woman asked for Claire's date of birth, August 22nd, 1990. Address? I gave it to her. Phone number? I gave her that too. She looked up. Relationship? I'm her father. That answer was enough for the woman at the desk. She printed a sticker with my name and sent me through 2 locked doors. Claire was curled on her side behind a curtain, wearing a hospital gown and one of those blankets that never quite covers a person. Her dark hair was tied into a knot that looked as if she had done it with one hand. An IV line ran from her wrist to a clear bag above her. The moment she saw me, she said, "You brought a bag." I did. "You always bring a bag. I've found they're useful for carrying things." She closed her eyes, but one corner of her mouth moved. "I'm in too much pain for your comedy. I can come back when you're feeling more receptive." Her hand slid across the sheet. I took it. Claire had been beautiful all her life, but not in a soft way. She had her mother's sharp eyebrows and my tendency to look annoyed while concentrating. Even sick, she seemed offended by the room. The monitor beeped too loudly. The IV pole was in the wrong place. Someone had given her apple juice when she preferred cranberry. "What happened?" I asked. "Pain. A lot of it." "When did it start?" "This afternoon." I thought it was something I ate. "What did you eat?" "A sandwich. That narrows it down. A suspicious sandwich." She shifted and sucked in a breath. Her fingers tightened around mine. "A nurse named Keisha came in to check the IV. She had purple glasses and the unhurried speed of someone who knew exactly which things were urgent." "Pain still at 7?" she asked. 8 when he makes jokes, Claire said. Keisha glanced at me. Then you'd better get funnier or quieter. I've been told both. Claire opened her eyes. Did you call Evan? 3 times. He's at a work dinner. At 12:30? It ran late. Keisha adjusted something on the IV pump without looking at either of us. The machine gave a dissatisfied chirp. His phone might be dead, Claire added. I nodded because she seemed to need me to. Did you come in by ambulance? My neighbor heard me in the hallway. I was trying to get downstairs. Why? To go to the hospital, Dad. You were going to drive yourself? I was going to get a ride share. With what phone? Yours is still in your condo. She stared at me. How do you know that? The hospital called from your emergency information. If you'd had your phone, you probably would have called Evan before trying the hallway. For a few seconds, there was only the sound of rain touching the narrow window. Keisha handed Claire a cup with 2 ice chips in it. The doctor will be back when radiology finishes reading the scan. Claire waited until Keisha left. Please don't call Mom yet. Why not? Because she'll panic. Your mother does enjoy an emergency. She'll ask questions. That's usually how conversations work. You know what I mean? I did. Elaine could turn concern into an interrogation without changing her voice. Where were you? Why were you alone? What did you eat? Why didn't Evan bring you? By sunrise, she would have identified 3 personal failures and a vitamin deficiency. Still, there was something in Claire's expression that went beyond avoiding her mother's questions. Is Evan out of town? I asked. No. Then why isn't he here? I told you. Work dinner? You said that. She released my hand and pulled the blanket higher. You don't have to make that face. What face? The face where you decide not to say something so hard that everyone can hear it. That was fair enough that I looked away. I opened the canvas bag and placed her charger on the rolling tray, followed by the socks. You brought the gray ones, she said. You like the gray ones. They make my feet look enormous. No one's going to be evaluating your feet. You don't know what kind of hospital this is. I set the insurance folder beside the socks. Her expression changed. You still had that? You left it at my house. I left it because you asked to see it. You asked me whether the deductible was terrible. And you said it was criminal. I said insulting. Criminal has a specific meaning. She closed her eyes again. My appendix is exploding, and you're editing me. We don't know that it's your appendix. It feels personal enough to be an organ I've neglected. The doctor returned 20 minutes later. He was younger than Claire, or looked younger, which I suspected bothered both of us. His name was Dr. Shah, and he had a calm voice that made bad news sound organized. The scan showed inflammation and a blockage around her gallbladder. He explained what that meant, what they could do, and why waiting was a bad idea. Claire listened with her jaw set. Surgery tonight? She asked. That's what I recommend. Tonight is almost over, then very early this morning. She looked at me. I wanted to tell her it would be fine, but Dr. Shah had just listed several ways it might not be fine, and Claire had never forgiven false reassurance. I'm here, I said. She nodded once. Dr. Shah asked about medications and allergies. Claire answered the first 2 questions, then frowned when he mentioned antibiotics. She had a reaction to amoxicillin, I said. When? He asked. College. Her face swelled. Claire looked at me. I forgot about that. You looked like a chipmunk. I was having a medical emergency. You still looked like one. Dr. Shah smiled despite himself and made a note. After he left, I finally called Elaine. She answered with, Daniel? It's Claire. Her voice changed. What about her? I explained the surgery as simply as I could. Where's Evan? I haven't reached him. What do you mean you haven't reached him? I mean, phones continue to function according to their design, but he isn't answering his. Don't get sarcastic with me. Is Claire awake? Yes. Put her on. Claire shook her head before I could ask. She's in pain, I said. I'll call when she's out. Elaine went quiet. That was always worse than shouting. Daniel, what aren't you telling me? Nothing. It was true at the time. They began preparing Claire soon after that. A different nurse came in with forms, questions, and a small plastic bag for jewelry. Claire removed her wedding ring and stared at it a second too long before dropping it into the bag. Do you want me to hold that? I asked. No. The answer was fast. She tucked the bag beneath her folded clothes. I called Evan a 4th time. When the nurse asked who should receive the surgeon's call, Claire said the words I would hear over and over for months. He's my husband. Daniel is only my father. Only. Such a small word. You could set it almost anywhere in a sentence and watch something shrink. The nurse looked embarrassed for me, which somehow made it worse. I folded Claire's sweater and placed it on the chair. I made the sleeves even, then I made them even again. A transporter arrived to take her upstairs. Claire reached for my hand. You'll still be here when I wake up, right? There were plenty of answers I could have given. The honest one. The angry one. The answer a man with pride might give. Instead, I squeezed her fingers. Yes, I said. I'll be here. She let go, and they rolled her through the double doors. I sat down with her canvas bag at my feet and her gray socks still in my pocket. Then I called Evan for the 5th time. This time, the phone rang once before he declined the call. I stared at the screen until his name disappeared. A few seconds later, a text appeared. Can't talk. What is it? I typed with both thumbs. Claire is in surgery at St. Vincent. Gallbladder. Call me now. The 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. Which St. Vincent? There was only one St. Vincent in our part of the county, and Evan had been there twice. Once when his father needed stitches after trying to open a plastic package with a steak knife, and once when Claire broke her wrist slipping on ice. I sent the address anyway. His answer came 2 minutes later. On my way. I looked at the time. It was 2:48 in the morning. The waiting room outside surgery had 12 chairs, 1 television with the sound off, and a machine that sold coffee under circumstances coffee should never be sold. I bought a cup because the act of buying it gave me something to do. The first sip tasted like somebody had described coffee to hot water. I sat where I could see the double doors. Claire's canvas bag remained between my feet. I took the gray socks out of my pocket, folded them together, and placed them inside the bag. Then I checked my phone. No call from Evan. At 3:11, Elaine called me. Is she in surgery? Yes. Why didn't you call when they took her? Because they took her. That's not an answer. It's the answer I have. I'm getting dressed. Stay home until I know something. She's my daughter. I know who she is, Elaine. You don't get to decide whether I come. No, but I get to tell you there's nowhere to go. They won't let either of us back there. And if everything goes well, she'll be in recovery before you finish driving. Elaine was silent for a moment. She had always been good at using silence as a piece of furniture. She could set it down between us and make me walk around it. Did Evan call? She asked. He sent a text. A text. He says he's on his way. From where? I didn't ask. You should have. I was busy being only her father. The words came out before I could stop them. What does that mean? Nothing. It didn't sound like nothing. They were taking her in. She wanted Evan called. Of course she wanted her husband called. Of course. There was another silence, different from the first. Daniel, she said. Is there something wrong between them? I don't know. That was also true, but it no longer felt true. Elaine exhaled. Call me the second you hear anything. I will, and don't let them send her home too soon. Hospitals do that now. I'll tell them you said so. Don't be cute. I wouldn't dream of it. She hung up without saying goodbye, which was how I knew she was frightened. I checked the time again. 3:19. Evan had been on his way for 31 minutes. A man in blue scrubs came through the doors at 3:42 and walked toward me. For one terrible second, I couldn't remember Dr. Shaw's face. I stood so quickly my knee struck the coffee table. Mr. Mercer? Yes. Claire did well. My legs went unreliable in a way I hoped he didn't notice. He explained that they had removed her gallbladder laparoscopically. There had been significant inflammation, but no rupture and no complication. She was in recovery and would be moved to a room once she was awake enough. Can I see her? Soon? Did she ask for me? She's still coming out of anesthesia. Right. Of course. Dr. Shaw smiled. She's going to be sore. We'll keep an eye on her through the morning and make sure she can drink, eat a little, and walk safely. When can she go home? That depends on how she does. Later today is possible. Tomorrow may be more realistic. Will someone need to stay with her? Yes. At least the first 48 hours. I nodded. There are moments when a person begins volunteering before he has made the decision. The word almost formed in my mouth. I swallowed it. Thank you, I said. I called Elaine. She cried for approximately 4 seconds, denied crying, then said she would come at 8. Has Evan arrived? She asked. Not yet, from another state. I'll call you later. At 4:06, a nurse came out and asked if I was Daniel. I am. She's asking whether you're still here. I picked up the canvas bag. Claire was in a narrow recovery bay with warm air blowing beneath her blanket. Her eyes were half open, and her hair had escaped the knot completely. She looked younger and older at the same time. Hey, I said. Her gaze wandered until it found me. You stayed. I said I would. What time is it? Just after 4. Morning? That's how clocks work. Her eyes closed, still not funny. The nurse adjusted a line near her hand. She'll drift in and out for a while. Claire wet her lips. Evan, he texted. He's coming. Did you talk to him? No. Her eyes opened a little wider. I called, I said. He texted back. His phone was dead. He must have found some electricity. She looked toward the nurse, then back at me. Don't. I'm not doing anything. You're doing the face again. I pulled the chair closer and sat down. Go to sleep. Bossy. I've been promoted from only father. Her eyes opened. I regretted it immediately. Not because it was untrue, but because she looked too weak to defend herself. Dad, she whispered. It's fine. It wasn't, and she knew it. But the medication pulled her away before either of us had to decide what came next. I sat beside her while the monitor counted the seconds. Evan arrived at 5:37. I knew the exact time because I had looked at the clock at 5:36 and wondered whether he intended to come at all. He came around the curtain, carrying a paper shopping bag and wearing dark trousers, a white shirt, and the navy overcoat Claire had given him for Christmas. His blonde hair was damp from the rain. He looked tired, but not like a man who had spent the night at a hospital. Dan, he said quietly. He was the only person who called me Dan. I had never asked him to. Evan. He looked at Claire and stopped. Something happened to his face then. It wasn't performance. His mouth tightened, and the hand holding the bag flexed hard enough to wrinkle the paper. Whatever else was wrong, he was not pleased to see her in that bed. How is she? The surgery went well. They removed her gallbladder. He stepped closer. She's okay? The doctor says she is, thank God. He placed the bag on the chair beside mine. I could see the end of Claire's green hairbrush sticking out, along with her glasses case and the cranberry lip balm she kept beside the bed. That bothered me in a way I couldn't name. I had wanted him to arrive empty-handed so I could be entirely right about him. What happened to your phone? I asked. It died during dinner. I didn't see anything until I found a charger at the office. You were at the office? We went back after dinner. We have a presentation this morning. I looked at him. He rubbed the back of his neck. I know. It sounds awful. Your phone worked well enough to decline my call. His eyes moved toward Claire. Keep your voice down, he said. My voice had not been raised. You declined it. I didn't know she was in surgery. You knew she was in the hospital. I was driving. You texted me. At a light. There must have been several long lights between the office and here. He stared at me. I saw irritation first, then guilt, then something almost like warning. This isn't the place, he said. No, it isn't. Claire stirred before he could answer. Evan moved to the bed. See? Her eyes opened slowly. She stared at him as if she didn't trust what she was seeing. You came, she said. Of course I came. She lifted her hand, and he took it between both of his. For a second, I was back outside the operating room, hearing, "He's my husband." Evan bent and kissed her forehead. Claire closed her eyes, and a tear slipped toward her ear. Hey, he said. You're okay? Where were you? My phone died. I called before I left home. I know, I'm sorry. You didn't call back. I'm here now. That answer settled over her. Not comfort exactly. More like a lid. I stood. Claire looked toward me. Are you leaving? I'm getting coffee. You already have coffee. That substance has lost the right to the name. Evan glanced at the cup on the windowsill. I can get you a fresh one. I know how to buy coffee. Neither of them responded. I took the empty cup and walked down the hall. When I returned, Evan was sitting in my chair. Claire was asleep again, her hand curled near his on the blanket. He had taken off his overcoat. His white shirt was wrinkled across the back. I moved to the chair against the wall. Around 7, Claire was transferred to a private room upstairs. Evan walked beside the bed while I followed with the 2 bags. Nobody asked who I was. The windows in the room faced east. Morning light turned the wet rooftops silver. Claire slept through most of the move, waking only when the orderlies shifted her onto the new bed. Evan stood near the window, typing on his phone. Claire watched him for a while. "Do you have to go in?" she asked. He stopped typing. "I have to make some calls. That's not what I asked. I'm trying to move things around." She looked down at the blanket. "You have Denver tomorrow. I can cancel Denver." "No, you can't. I can if I need to. You've been preparing for that meeting for 2 months. I'm not leaving you alone. You won't be." Both of them looked at me. It was done so naturally that, for a second, I thought I had spoken. "I have room," I said. Evan shook his head. "You don't have to do that." Claire's gaze stayed on me. There was pain in it, but also certainty. She knew my answer before I gave it. "You heard the doctor," she said. "It's only for a couple of days. Only again." "I can stay at your condo," I said. "No." Her answer was immediate. "Your house is easier. No elevator, no neighbors asking questions." "What questions would your neighbors ask?" She looked toward Evan. He lowered his phone. "Her place isn't set up for this." "Set up for what? Sleeping?" "Dan," he said. There it was again. A warning disguised as my name. Claire pressed a hand against her abdomen and winced. I stepped to the bed before Evan did. "You're due for pain medication," I said. "I know. I'll get the nurse." "Dad." I stopped. "Thank you," she said. The words should have felt different. They should have softened something. Instead, I noticed the wedding ring was no longer in the plastic bag beneath her clothes. It was on her finger again, turned slightly sideways, as if it didn't fit the way it used to. I went to find the nurse. Behind me, Claire asked Evan whether he had brought the gray sweater from their bedroom. He said he had looked, but he couldn't remember which drawer she kept it in. The nurse found us before I had to hear the answer. Claire took the pills from a paper cup and made a face when she swallowed. Evan poured water for her, holding the straw near her mouth, as if he had been there all night. I stood by the door with my hands in my pockets. Elaine arrived a little after 8, wearing a red raincoat and the expression she normally reserved for customer service managers. She kissed Claire, inspected the IV, read every name written on the whiteboard, and asked the nurse why the blood pressure number was higher than it had been an hour earlier. The nurse told her pain could do that. "I understand pain can affect blood pressure," Elaine said. "I'm asking whether that number concerns you." "It doesn't." "Good." Elaine sat down and took Claire's hand. Only then did she look at Evan. "You made it." It sounded like an accusation because Elaine could make anything sound like an accusation, including happy birthday. "My phone died," Evan said. "So I've heard." He glanced at me. I had not told her. Elaine must have gotten it from Claire during one of the moments I was out of the room. Claire's eyes moved between them. "He came as soon as he could," she said. Elaine turned to me. "And you? What about me? You look terrible. I was hoping somebody would notice. Go home and sleep." Claire tightened her hand around mine before I had realized she was still holding it. "He can't leave yet." The room went still for half a second. Elaine noticed. Evan noticed. I certainly noticed. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. Claire released me and adjusted her blanket. "I just mean until the doctor comes back." "Of course," Elaine said. She opened the tote she had brought and took out a hairbrush, face wipes, a compact mirror, and a pale blue cardigan. Claire looked at the cardigan. "Where did you get that?" "Your condo." Evan's head came up. "You went inside?" Claire asked. "I have the key you gave me for the plants. You haven't watered my plants in 2 years. They survived. I changed the alarm code. You changed it to your wedding date. That's not exactly the Enigma machine." Claire gave Evan a quick look. He reached for his phone. Elaine placed the cardigan over the back of a chair. "I thought you'd want something that opens in the front. Your gray sweater is too tight to pull over your head after surgery." I asked Evan for the gray one. Yes, I saw it on the bed. Evan stopped moving. It was such a small exchange that I almost missed what passed underneath it. Claire stared at her mother. Elaine looked back with the bland patience of a woman waiting for someone to lie. "Did you go into the spare room?" Claire asked. "Why would I go into the spare room? No reason." The nurse returned to check the incision sites. Elaine stood, gathered her purse, and said she was getting coffee. I followed her into the hall. She waited until we were past the door. "What is going on?" "I don't know." "You keep saying that?" "I keep not knowing." I went to their condo. There was one coffee cup in the sink, one towel in the bathroom, and a stack of mail on the counter with Evan's name on it that hadn't been touched. That sounds like evidence in one of your television programs. It sounds like he hasn't been living there. I looked through the narrow glass panel in the door. Evan was standing by the window, speaking quietly into his phone. Claire watched him. "Did you ask her?" I said. "I tried. She asked whether I'd gone into the spare room, so you didn't. That's your response?" "My response is that she just had surgery." Elaine folded her arms. "You always do this." "Do what?" "Decide that the worst moment to ask a question is any moment when the answer might be unpleasant." That's a very Elaine sentence, and that is a very Daniel escape hatch. She wasn't wrong, which made the coffee machine at the end of the hall suddenly fascinating. Elaine's expression softened. "What did Claire say before they took her in?" "Nothing important." "You said something strange on the phone?" "I was tired. Daniel, let it go." She studied me long enough to make clear that she was choosing to, not failing to notice. When we went back inside, Evan was putting on his overcoat. "I need to make a few calls downstairs," he said. "I'll be back before the doctor rounds." Claire looked at the clock. "Your presentation is at 9. They can start without me. They can't. I'll handle it." She gave him a smile that seemed designed to reassure him. That struck me as backward, but nobody asked. Evan kissed her, nodded to Elaine, and left. He did not come back before the doctor rounded. He did not come back when Claire ate 4 spoonfuls of broth, or when the nurse helped her take her first slow walk down the hallway. I walked on one side, while Elaine rolled the IV pole on the other. "You two look like an elderly parade," Claire muttered. "You're the one wearing a gown in public," Elaine said. Dr. Shaw was satisfied with her progress, but wanted to watch her a few more hours. If she continued doing well, he said, she could leave that afternoon. No lifting, no driving, no alcohol with the pain medication, and no being alone for at least 48 hours. "I'll be with her," I said. Claire answered at the same time. "I'll stay at Dad's." Elaine looked at both of us. "My place has a guest room." "Upstairs," Claire said. "You climb stairs at your condo. I take the elevator. You said you didn't want the neighbors asking questions." Claire's mouth tightened. "Dad's house is easier." I could see Elaine preparing 3 more questions, but she closed her lips around them. Evan returned just before 2. He said the presentation had gone well and the Denver meeting had been moved earlier. His flight left at 6 the next morning. "I can cancel," he told Claire. "No," she said. "Dad's got me." She said it lightly, like I was an umbrella she had remembered leaving in the trunk. Evan looked at me. "You're sure?" I wanted him to stop asking in a way that made my yes seem like his kindness. "I'm sure." He helped Claire into the blue cardigan Elaine had brought. She winced when she moved her right arm, and he slowed down immediately. "Sorry," he whispered. "It's okay." His hand stayed on her shoulder. For a moment, they looked like the couple they had been in the framed photographs around their condo, comfortable, practiced, privately amused by the rest of us. Then Evan's phone buzzed. He stepped away before looking at it. The nurse went through the discharge instructions with all 4 of us. Elaine took notes. I asked about fever and wound care. Evan asked when Claire could return to work. Claire asked when she could shower. When the nurse said someone needed to manage the medication schedule, Claire pointed at me. "He'll make a chart." "I don't need a chart," I said. "You're going to make one." "I might." "He'll color code it." "I don't even own colored pens." Elaine opened her purse and handed me 3. It was the first time any of us laughed. Evan left for the office before Claire was discharged. He promised to come by my house that evening, but around 6 he texted Claire that he was still packing and would call from the airport in the morning. Claire showed me the message as if it proved something. "At least he's not driving tired," she said. I didn't say anything. "You didn't have to." She was settled into my guest room by then, propped against 3 pillows with the blue cardigan hanging over the desk chair. The canvas bag sat open on the floor. Her wedding ring was on her finger. The plastic jewelry bag folded inside the insurance folder. I had turned the guest room into a partial office after the divorce, but the bed was still there, and the bathroom was directly across the hall. Claire surveyed the room with a seriousness usually associated with building inspection. "The curtains are dusty. I'll inform management. And that clock ticks." "It's a clock. It ticks aggressively." I removed the clock and placed it in the hall closet. She looked pleased for almost 5 seconds. "Can I have water? There's a glass beside you." "Fresh water. That water was born 10 minutes ago. It tastes like the pipes." I replaced it. By 7, I had made the chart Elaine predicted, using the green pen for medication and the red one for temperature. Claire watched from the kitchen doorway while I heated chicken broth. You don't need to do all this. I know, I could have stayed home. You also could have avoided emergency surgery by developing an ability to diagnose your own organs. She lowered herself carefully into a chair. Do you have crackers that aren't stale? No, I found some in the pantry. Then why ask? Because I was hoping you had crackers from this decade somewhere else. I went to the store. When I came back, she was asleep at the kitchen table with her head resting on her folded arms. Her phone was beside her, open to a message thread with Evan. I didn't read it. I covered the screen with the sleeve of her cardigan and stood there longer than necessary, listening to her breathe. She woke near midnight, frightened by a pain beneath her ribs. I checked her temperature, called the nurse line, and sat on the edge of the guest bed until the medication began working. Don't tell Mom I panicked, she murmured. I'll put it in the family newsletter. Or Evan, I won't. He has the Denver meeting. I remember. He wanted to stay. I remember that too. She looked at me through half-closed eyes. You're mad at him? I don't know enough to be mad. You're mad anyway. Go to sleep, Claire? Her breathing slowed. Just before she drifted off, she reached out from beneath the blanket and caught 2 fingers of my left hand. I sat there until she let go. The next day, she was well enough to complain about my television, my towels, and the fact that I had no oat milk. How do you live like this? She asked, holding a carton of regular milk as if I had stored gasoline in the refrigerator. Quietly. She smiled despite herself. There were stretches when being needed felt exactly as it always had. Easy, familiar, almost warm. She would call from the guest room, and I would answer before she finished saying, Dad. Each small task kept the hospital words at a manageable distance. Evan called twice from Denver. Both conversations ended when I entered the room. On the second evening, Elaine brought baked pasta and stayed while Claire ate. She watched me move between the stove, table, and sink. You could sit down, she said. I've tried it. Overrated. Claire looked at her mother. He likes hovering. I'm not hovering. You cut my pasta. You were trying to do it with the side of a fork. I could have managed. I set the knife beside her plate, then manage. Claire blinked at me. Elaine looked down at her food. I went into the kitchen and ran water over a dish that was already clean. Their voices dropped, but the house was small. What happened at the hospital? Elaine asked. Nothing. Dad's offended. By what? I said Evan was my husband and Dad was my father. Apparently there's a ranking system now. That doesn't sound like Daniel. Claire gave a short laugh. You know how he is. He likes emergencies. He likes being the one everybody needs. It gives him a place. The water ran over my hand until it turned cold. Elaine did not answer immediately. Then she said, Be careful, Claire. Your father will let people need him for years. That doesn't mean it costs him nothing. That's a little dramatic, Claire said. Maybe, Elaine answered. He offered to help. Daniel always offers. That's not my fault. No. But what you do with the offer is... I turned off the water. The sudden quiet in the kitchen exposed all 3 of us. Elaine looked toward the doorway as I came back into the dining room. Claire was pushing a piece of pasta around her plate. Anybody want coffee? I asked. Elaine's expression told me she knew I had heard. Claire's told me she wasn't sure. No, Elaine said. I should go. You just got here, Claire said. I've been here an hour. You brought an entire pan of food. We've barely made a dent in it. Your father can freeze it. Your mother believes my freezer is a place where food goes to await a dignified burial. I've seen what's in there. Elaine stood and carried her plate into the kitchen. I followed because we had spent too many years following each other out of rooms when neither of us wanted to make a scene. She set the plate beside the sink. Don't say it, I told her. I haven't said anything. You're about to. You can't keep swallowing every slight and then act surprised when you choke. That's colorful. It's accurate. She's recovering. She's also 35. I'm aware. Elaine took her raincoat from the hook near the back door. Are you angry because of what she said at the hospital? I'm tired. You were tired yesterday. This is different. You don't need to manage it. I'm not managing it. I'm warning you that if you're hurt, say you're hurt. Don't turn into a pleasant stranger and make everyone guess. I don't do that. She gave me a look. I helped her into her raincoat to avoid receiving more of it. At the front door, Elaine called to Claire that she would phone in the morning. Claire answered from the dining room, sounding cheerful enough to fool someone who had not raised her. Elaine lowered her voice. She's hiding something. I know. That was the first time I admitted it out loud. Elaine touched my arm. Whatever it is, don't let her use the surgery to keep you from asking. Then she left. Claire was still at the table when I returned. She had managed 3 more bites. What were you two whispering about? Your mother was telling me how to communicate. Claire smiled. That must have been quick. She could write everything you know on a sticky note. I began clearing the table. She watched me stack the plates. Did you hear us? Yes, all of it. The house is 1,400 square feet, Claire. You weren't calling from another country. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. How did it sound? Like I'm taking advantage of you. I waited. She rubbed her thumb along the edge of the table. I'm not, she said. Okay. That okay means you think I am. It means I don't want to discuss this while you're tired. I'm not tired. You just fell asleep during dinner. I was resting my eyes. You had a noodle stuck to your sleeve. She looked down automatically. There isn't one now. That doesn't prove anything. For half a second, she almost laughed. Then she saw I wasn't going to give her the relief of turning it into a joke. You're being weird, she said. I'm doing the dishes. You've been quiet all day. You complain that I hover. You do hover. I'm trying something new. I carried the plates into the kitchen. She stayed at the table until I finished. When she stood, I moved toward her without thinking. My hand was already halfway to her elbow before I stopped it. Claire noticed. I can walk, she said. I know. She made it to the guest room by herself and closed the door. I slept badly. At 6, I gave up, made coffee, and found the carton of oat milk I had bought the day before, pushed behind the orange juice. The label promised it was creamy. The contents looked like water someone had rinsed a paintbrush in. Claire came into the kitchen a little after 7, wearing my gray socks and the sweatpants I had packed for the hospital. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. She moved carefully, but without the bent, guarded posture she had carried the day before. You bought oat milk, she said. I made a mistake. You went back to the store? I needed coffee. You already had coffee? I needed coffee that didn't require this. She opened the carton and poured some into a mug. This is the good kind. I'm glad one of us has benefited. I put bread in the toaster. She sat at the table, both hands around the mug. I could have asked whether she slept well. I could have discussed her medication or the weather, or whether she wanted eggs. We had built an entire relationship out of available subjects. Instead, I said, "What did you mean at the hospital?" She stared into her mug. We already talked about this. No, you explained that husbands and fathers are different. I'm asking why you needed to say I was only your father. I was medicated. You remembered enough to insist we call Evan, because he's my husband, and I was standing beside you. So, you didn't say, call my husband. You said, Daniel is only my father. You made sure a stranger understood how little authority I had. I was clarifying. For whom? She pushed the mug away. Do you hear yourself? Every word. You're making a medical crisis about your feelings. I waited until you were safe. I'm still recovering. You'll be recovering for a while. That doesn't give us a month where nothing counts. Her eyes sharpened. There. That's what this is. You want credit. I want to understand. No, you want me to say you're more reliable than Evan. You want me to admit I needed you. You did need me. She stood too quickly and pressed a hand to her abdomen. I moved around the table. Don't, she said. I stopped. See? She gestured between us. You like this. You like being the person who arrives with the bag and knows the allergy and makes the chart. You love emergencies because nobody can tell you they don't need you. The toaster popped. Neither of us moved. Claire's voice lowered. You weren't good at the other things. What other things? Talking, asking questions, being there when there wasn't a task. I was there. You worked. You fixed things. You drove me places. After you and Mom split up, I could sit at your kitchen table for 2 hours and you'd ask if my tires needed air before you asked whether I was okay. You were 23. Every time I asked about your life, you told me not to pry. You gave up pretty easily. That landed because it was true. I turned away and removed the toast before it burned. I thought giving you space was respectful, I said. You thought it was safe. Yes. She had not expected agreement. I put the toast on a plate. I knew how to be useful, I said. I didn't always know how to be close. Useful was easier because nobody could reject a repaired sink. Claire sat down again, more slowly. I'm not saying you were a bad father. No. You're saying I made being needed the price of admission. Didn't you? Sometimes. I set the plate in front of her. And sometimes you learned that if you needed enough, neither of us had to risk anything else. Her face closed. That is not fair. No, it isn't. You're blaming me for asking my father for help. I'm telling you the help doesn't erase the way you treat the person giving it. I said one word. You said it because you believed it would cost nothing. She stared at me. I took my coffee to the sink, even though I hadn't finished it. You're well enough to go home today, I said. I'll drive you. Her chair scraped back. You're throwing me out? No. That is exactly what you're doing. You needed someone for 48 hours. It's been longer than that. You're walking, eating, and taking regular pain medication. You said yesterday you could manage. You're punishing me. I'm taking you at your word. She laughed once without humor. That's convenient. I'll pack your things. Don't. She went to the guest room and shut the door hard enough to make the aggressive clock rattle inside the hall closet. We left 2 hours later. Claire refused my help with the canvas bag, then had to hand it to me halfway down the front walk. She sat stiffly in the passenger seat, one arm folded across her abdomen. At her building, she entered the alarm code while I held the door. The numbers were her wedding date. Inside the condo, the air smelled faintly stale. The pale blue cardigan Elaine had brought was over my arm. I hung it in the hall closet and noticed only women's coats. I told myself that meant nothing. Claire carried the insurance folder to the kitchen. She placed it on the counter beside the stack of mail Elaine had mentioned. Evan's envelopes were still there, unopened. Where do you want the bag? I asked. Just leave it. It's in the middle of the floor. I'll move it later. You're not supposed to lift anything. Then put it in the spare room. I carried it down the hall. Dad, she called behind me. The spare room door was open. The room had once held a desk, a bookcase, and a brown leather chair Evan brought from his first apartment. Now it held a stripped bed frame and a white rectangle on the wall where a picture had been. Dust marked the floor where the desk had stood. The closet door was open, showing an empty rail. I set the bag down. Claire stood behind me with one hand against the door frame. How long? I asked. She looked away. How long has he been gone? He isn't gone. How long has he been sleeping somewhere else? 6 weeks. The number rearranged several recent memories. The loose cabinet hinge Claire had called me about. The grocery delivery she claimed Evan forgot. The dining chair I had repaired because they were supposedly hosting friends. Every time I had come, there had been a reason he wasn't there. Where is he staying? At an extended stay place near his office. So this wasn't a work dinner. There was a dinner. That isn't what I asked. We're taking space. You're separated. Don't call it that. What would you like me to call an empty room and 6 weeks in a hotel? Her eyes filled, but her voice turned harder. This is why I didn't tell you. Because I know what empty means. Because you make everything final. I haven't made anything final. Evan moved his furniture. He's coming back. Does Elaine know? No. Anyone? No. I looked toward the kitchen, at the mail and the insurance folder, and the little plastic bag still holding nothing, because the ring was back on Claire's finger. At the hospital, I said, you weren't protecting Evan. She folded her arms. I was protecting myself. From what? From everyone looking at me the way you're looking at me now. I picked up the empty canvas bag. I'll answer if you have a real emergency, I said. But I'm not covering this anymore. I'm not fixing his half of your life so nobody notices he left. I never asked you to lie. You asked me to make the lie easier. You're abandoning me when my marriage is falling apart. I spent 3 days taking care of you. And now you're keeping score. No. I met her eyes. I'm finally reading it. She followed me to the front door, but did not ask me to stay. In the elevator, I realized she was still wearing my gray socks. In the parking garage, a carton of oat milk rolled out from beneath the passenger seat when I opened the car door. I had put it there that morning, so she could take it home. I carried it back upstairs and left it outside her door. Then I went home before she opened it. The guest room still smelled faintly of Claire's shampoo. Her water glass sat on the nightstand beside the medication chart. The red pen had rolled under the bed. One of her hair ties was looped around the lamp, and the bedspread was pulled loose at the corner where she had climbed out that morning. I stood in the doorway holding the aggressive clock. For 3 days, every sound in the house had meant something. A floorboard meant she needed water. A cabinet meant she was trying to lift something. Silence meant I should check whether she had fallen asleep. Now the house was simply quiet again. I put the clock back on the nightstand. It ticked with a smugness I had not noticed before. At 7:30, my phone buzzed. Found the milk. I waited for another message. Nothing came. I typed, "How are you feeling?" Then I deleted it. I tried, "Do you need anything?" Deleted that too. The question had become muscle memory. I set the phone face down on the kitchen counter and heated a square of Elaine's baked pasta. I ate standing over the sink, which Elaine claimed was how men slowly turned into raccoons. At 9, Claire called, "My incision feels hot." I put down my fork. "Which one?" "The one near my belly button." "Is it red?" "A little." "How red?" "I don't know." "Red." "Do you have a fever?" "I haven't checked. The thermometer is in the bathroom drawer. You took it out of the bag. I put it in your drawer before we left, next to the bandages." She was quiet. "What?" "Nothing. Take your temperature." I heard her moving through the condo. A cabinet opened. Something fell. "Claire?" "It was a box." "What box?" "A box, Dad. I'm not trapped under it." I gripped the phone. "Call me back with the number." She called 6 minutes later. 99. "That isn't a fever. It's higher than normal. You had surgery. If it reaches the number on the discharge sheet, call the nurse line. If the redness spreads, call them. If the pain gets worse, call them." "Are you coming?" The question was quiet. "Do you need to go back to the hospital?" "No." "Are you dizzy?" "No." "Can you breathe normally?" "Yes." "Then I'm not coming." Another silence. "You said you'd answer a real emergency." I answered. "You know what I meant." "Yes," I said. "I do." She hung up. I sat at the kitchen table with the phone still against my ear. Then I called the nurse line myself and described what she had told me without giving her name. The nurse repeated what I had said almost word for word. That should have made me feel better. It did not. I slept with the phone on the nightstand and the volume turned all the way up. Claire did not call again that night. The next morning, I stripped the guest bed, washed the towels, and put the blue cardigan she had forgotten over the back of a dining chair. At 10, I went into the hall closet for a screwdriver and found the clock where I had originally hidden it. I couldn't remember moving it back. That bothered me more than it should have. My phone rang while I was replacing a loose handle on the pantry door. "Dad, my sink is leaking." "Where?" "Underneath. Turn off the valves. I can't bend down. Call the building manager. He isn't answering. Leave a message. There's water getting into the cabinet. Put towels down. I'm not supposed to lift anything. Towels are light. Very funny. I'm not joking." I heard a cabinet door slam. "Evan normally handles this," she said. That was a lie so obvious we both stood inside it for a second. "No," I said. "I normally handle it. You know what I mean. I don't think I do. It could damage the cabinet. Then call a plumber. They charge $180 just to show up on weekends. That's unfortunate. You could fix it in 5 minutes." "I probably could, Dad." "I'm not coming over, Claire." She breathed out hard through her nose. "You're enjoying this. Not even a little. This is punishment." "No. Punishment would be letting the water run because I wanted your floor ruined. I'm telling you how to stop it. You know I can't get under there. Call Elaine. Mom doesn't know how to fix a sink. Neither do most people. They call someone. I called you. I know." She hung up again. 40 minutes later, Elaine's car pulled into my driveway. She came through the front door without knocking, which was not unusual. The fact that she was carrying 2 wet bath towels was. You left Claire alone with water pouring into her kitchen. "Good morning." She should not be crawling under a sink. She shouldn't. Did she? No. I did. Then this has been educational for everyone. Daniel? I took the towels from her and carried them to the laundry room. "The connection was loose," she said, following me. I tightened it with my hand. "I'm proud of you. Stop being clever. I'm not the one who came here with evidence." Elaine folded her arms. She had changed out of the red raincoat but kept the same expression. "Claire says you took her home because you were angry about something she said before surgery. She was safe to go home. That's not what I asked. She had been here more than 72 hours. The doctor said 48. You are not the doctor. No, but I can read. She's upset. So am I." Elaine's mouth opened, then closed. I had surprised her. In 29 years of marriage and 12 years of divorce, I had probably said those words to her fewer than 10 times. "What exactly did she say?" Elaine asked. I told her. I did not improve it for my benefit or soften it for Claire's. I told Elaine where I had been standing, that Evan had not answered, and how Claire had reached for my hand immediately afterward. Elaine sat at the kitchen table. She said, "Only?" "Yes." She was afraid. "I know." And medicated. She knew who she wanted. Elaine picked at a chip in the table's finish. That was cruel. It would have been easier if she had defended Claire. I'm not doing this over one word, I said. You keep saying that word, because she keeps treating it like a technicality. I told Elaine what I had seen in the spare room. Her face went still. 6 weeks? That's what Claire said. And Evan is living in a hotel. Extended stay near his office. That little coward. Which one? Elaine looked up sharply. I'm not calling Claire a coward, I said. But she lied to both of us. She didn't tell us. She did more than not tell us. She had me covering every gap he left. Groceries, the chair, the disposal. Remember when she skipped your birthday dinner because Evan had food poisoning? Elaine frowned. You brought them soup. I left it outside the condo. Claire said he was sleeping. He wasn't there. No. She sat back. There are discoveries that arrive like explosions, and there are discoveries that simply turn on the lights. Once the room is bright, you see how long the furniture has been arranged that way. Elaine looked toward the dining room. The blue cardigan hung over the chair. I knew something was wrong, she said. I thought they were fighting. I didn't think he'd moved out. Neither did I. Why didn't she tell me? Because you would ask questions. That's what mothers do. Apparently fathers bring tools. This is not the time for you to compete with me. I'm not competing. You think she trusts you more. I think she uses us differently. Elaine flinched. I wished I had chosen another word. It was still the right one. She's frightened, Elaine said. Her marriage may be ending. She just had surgery. And now she thinks you've withdrawn your love. I've withdrawn my labor. She doesn't know the difference. Whose fault is that? Elaine looked tired. All of ours, probably. That answer took some of the fight out of me. She stood and picked up her purse. I'm going back to check on her. Good. You could come. No, she needs you. She needed someone to tighten a connection. You did it. That isn't what I meant. I know. At the door, she turned. You've made it very easy for people to believe you don't mind, she said. I know that too. After she left, I finished repairing the pantry handle. It had been loose for months. I had noticed it every day and never fixed it because no one had asked. My younger brother Robert called that afternoon. You sound old, he said. I am old. You're 4 years older than me. I need you to stay healthy so I can remain young by comparison. What do you want? I sent you the coast dates. I saw them. You didn't answer. I've been busy. With Claire? I leaned against the kitchen counter. How do you know? Because your answer to every question since 1990 has been Claire. There was no judgment in it. That made it worse. Robert had rented a small place near the coast for 4 days in May. He had been asking me to go for 3 years. The first year, Claire was moving. The second, she and Evan hosted an anniversary dinner and needed help with the patio. The third, I had simply said the timing was bad. When do you need an answer? I asked. Last Tuesday. Helpful. I'm going either way. I looked at the blue cardigan. I'll go, I said. Robert was quiet. What? I asked. I'm waiting for you to take it back. I'm not taking it back. All right, I'll write down the time for historical purposes. That evening, Claire called again. Evan's coming Sunday for the rest of his things. The words came out flat. Okay. I need you here. Why? So I'm not alone with him. Are you afraid he'll hurt you? No. Of course not. Has he threatened you? No. Then what are you afraid of? Her voice tightened. I don't want him to walk through our home taking things while I stand there. Ask Elaine. She'll turn it into a trial. Ask a friend. I don't want my friends to know. That leaves you with fewer choices. You keep him calm? No. I help both of you avoid saying what you mean. That's not true. It's been true for 6 weeks. She began crying so quietly I almost missed it. Dad, I need you. The old answer rose in me, fully formed. I closed my eyes. If you are in danger, call me, I said. If you need a witness, ask your mother. But I'm not standing between you and your husband while both of you pretend I'm the reason the conversation is difficult. She ended the call without saying goodbye. On the dining chair, her blue cardigan kept the shape of someone who was no longer there. I carried the cardigan upstairs and hung it in the guest room closet. It looked more abandoned there, not less. The doorbell rang before I had decided whether to close the closet door. I expected Elaine. She often returned after an argument because she remembered a better version of something she had already said. Evan stood on the porch. He wore jeans, a charcoal sweater, and the exhausted expression of a man who had spent a long time deciding to appear casual. There was no overcoat, no work bag, no excuse to leave within reach. "Can I come in? You know how doors work." He stepped past me and looked around, as if my house might have changed since Claire's recovery. His gaze stopped on the medication chart still lying on the dining table. "How is she?" I asked. "You talked to her more recently than I have. She said you're coming for the rest of your things." "That's the plan." "Then I suppose you'll see how she is." He put his hands in his pockets. "She said you won't be there. I won't. She wants you there." "I know. Dan, she's not ready to handle this by herself. Elaine's going. Elaine hates me. Elaine hates weakness. It's not always personal." He almost smiled. "That's reassuring." I waited. Evan walked to the window and looked out at the yard. The rain had stopped, but everything remained damp and dark around the edges. "I didn't leave because I don't love her," he said. "I didn't ask. I know what you think. That would make one of us." He turned. "You think I abandoned her. You moved into a hotel and let her tell everyone you were still living at home. I didn't let her do anything. She's an adult, then treat her like one. That's what I'm trying to do. By hiding in an extended stay room?" His jaw tightened. "I told her I needed space. Space is a long walk. 6 weeks is an address." He looked toward the stairs, then back at me. "Can we sit down?" I gestured toward the living room. Evan chose the edge of the sofa. I took the recliner, but left it upright. The television was off, its dark screen reflecting both of us, with more distance between us than the room actually held. He rubbed his palms together. "Claire and I have been having problems for a while." "How long is a while?" "A year, maybe more. And neither of you thought that might be worth mentioning. To our parents, to each other. We talked. You talked so effectively that your furniture moved before your marriage did." "That's not fair." "No, it's efficient." He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "You do this," he said. "What?" "You make one calm sentence and everybody else sounds irrational if they answer honestly." I looked at him. "That's what Claire says too. Maybe listen when two people tell you the same thing." There was no anger in his voice. That made it harder to dismiss. "All right," I said. "I'm listening." Evan's eyes came down from the ceiling. He had expected resistance. I recognized the expression because Claire had worn it in my kitchen. "She brings you into everything," he said. "If something breaks, she calls you before she tells me. If we disagree about the condo, she asks what you think. When we bought the dining table, she had you measure the room after I'd already measured it. My number was different. That isn't the point." My number was also correct. He laughed once despite himself. "You really can't help it." "No," I said. "Apparently I can't." He studied me, unsure whether I was making fun of him. "I never asked her to call me," I said. "You never had to. You always came." That sounds more like a complaint about Claire than me. It's both. You came, and then you acted as if there was no cost. You fixed the thing, paid for your own gas, refused lunch, and left. I'd be standing there feeling useless, and somehow feeling useless made me ungrateful. I didn't intend that. I know. That's what makes arguing with you impossible. You never intend anything. The sentence sat between us. I thought of Elaine telling me not to turn into a pleasant stranger, Claire saying I had given up easily, Robert saying my answer to every question was Claire. "Why did you leave?" I asked. Evan looked at his wedding ring. He still wore his too. "Because every fight became a referendum," he said. "If I needed a night alone, I didn't love her. If I forgot something, I didn't prioritize her. If I disagreed, I was pulling away. Eventually, I was spending all my energy proving I wasn't leaving. So, you left." "Yes." "At least you appreciate irony." "I didn't know what else to do. You could tell her whether you want the marriage." "I don't know. Have you told her that?" "She knows. No. She believes you're coming back." His face shifted. "That isn't entirely my fault." "What part is?" "I still call. I still see her. I went to dinner with her 2 weeks ago. We had a good night. Did you sleep at the condo?" He stood. "That's not your business. You came to my house to discuss your marriage. I came because she needs you tomorrow." "No. She needs you to be honest tomorrow." He walked toward the fireplace, stopped, then turned again. "You think you're being principled," he said. "But you're pulling away at the exact moment she's losing me. That's why you want me there. so she can lose you without you having to watch all of it. His mouth opened, nothing came out. I leaned forward. Did your phone die the night of the hospital? He looked toward the window. No. The answer was quiet. Where were you? At the office. You declined my call. I was finishing the presentation. After I told you she was in the hospital, I didn't know it was serious. I wrote that she was in surgery. That was after I declined. You texted me. I told you. Then you took nearly 3 hours. He sat again, this time in the chair across from me. I drove to the condo first, he said. I wanted to get her glasses and things. That takes 20 minutes. I sat in the parking garage. How long? I don't know, 45 minutes. I felt my hands close around the arms of the recliner. Why? Because I knew what it would look like when I walked in. I knew she'd ask where I'd been, and I knew I'd have to pretend we were fine in front of nurses and doctors. So, you let her go through surgery without you. You were there. The room changed. Evan heard it too. His face tightened before I said a word. You knew I would be, I said. I knew she wasn't alone, and because I showed up, you could stay in the garage. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. He stood again. Tomorrow at noon, he said. It won't take long. I'm not coming. Then don't blame me for how it goes. I don't blame you for everything, Evan. Just your part. He left without another word. I remained in the recliner, staring at the dark television. The worst part was that he had given me something true. I had made it easy for other people to disappear because I was so dependable in the space they left behind. Robert picked me up the next morning. I had forgotten we were supposed to look at camping equipment for the coast trip until he pulled into my driveway and leaned on the horn. When I opened the passenger door, he looked at my jacket. We're shopping, not crossing the Atlantic. I like pockets. You look like a retired magician. I can stay home. No, you can't. I drove 22 minutes. He waited while I put Claire's blue cardigan and the green and red pens into a paper bag for Elaine to take with her. Robert watched me set the bag near the front door. Are we transporting women's clothing now? It's Claire's. Of course it is. We drove to an outdoor store on the other side of town. Robert talked about rain jackets, fishing charters, and whether 4 days together would permanently damage our relationship. I answered in the appropriate places. At the store, he held up 2 collapsible chairs, blue or green. Either. One has a cup holder. I'm not living in it. He set both down. What happened? Nothing. You spent 10 minutes looking at socks. I was considering socks. You hate shopping. Last Christmas you gave me batteries. You needed batteries. I needed evidence you knew me. I looked at him. He shrugged. They were good batteries. We sat in a display tent intended for 3 people and barely large enough for the 2 of us. I told him about the hospital. Not every detail, but enough. Robert listened without interrupting. That was not his usual style. When I finished, he ran a hand over the tent fabric. You're angry because she treated you like a utility, he said. That's part of it. And you're scared that if you stop being useful, she won't call. I looked toward the open flap. That's the other part, I said. Robert nodded. Makes sense. You could say something helpful. I just did. You identified the problem. That's what helpful people do. You should know. My phone rang at 12:20. Claire. I let it ring. Robert watched me. You going to answer? I don't know. Is she in danger? No. Then you have time to decide. The call stopped. A voicemail appeared. I did not listen inside the tent. Elaine called at 1:30 while we were eating hamburgers at a diner. It's done, she said. How is Claire? Angry, hurt, upright. What did he take? Clothes, his coffee maker, 2 boxes from the spare room. I heard restaurant noise behind her. She had probably taken Claire somewhere to avoid being alone in the condo. Did they talk? They accused each other of avoiding the conversation while actively avoiding the conversation. That sounds familiar. She wanted you. I know. Elaine sighed. Evan kept looking at the door. Why? I think he expected you to walk through it. I looked across the booth at Robert, who was stealing fries from my plate. I wasn't coming. I know, Elaine said. There was no accusation in it this time. After we hung up, I listened to Claire's voicemail. For several seconds, there was only breathing. Then she said, he took the coffee maker you gave us. He said it was his because you handed it to him at Christmas. I told him you gave it to both of us, and he said, that isn't how gifts work. Her voice broke. I know that's stupid. I know it's just a coffee maker, but everything in here is turning into yours and mine, and I don't know where to stand." The message ended. I called her back. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail. "I'm sorry it hurts," I said. "I'm still not going to stand between you. But if you want to talk to me as your father, call when you're ready." I stopped there. I did not offer to buy another coffee maker. Robert waited until the waitress refilled our coffee before he said, "You almost did." "Did what?" "Offered to replace it." "I did not." "You made the face." "What face?" "The one where you calculate how quickly you can solve a problem nobody asked you to solve." I took one of my fries back from his plate. "You've spent too much time with Elaine." "Elaine called me once, after the divorce." "What for?" "To ask if you were depressed." "What did you say?" "I said you reorganized your garage by screw length." That was efficient. I told her yes. I looked toward the window. A couple was trying to fold a stroller into the trunk of a car. The stroller appeared to be winning. Robert drank his coffee. "You know," he said, "Claire isn't the only person you've done this with." "Done what?" "Made yourself available as long as no one expects you to have needs." "I have needs." "Name one." "I need you to stop eating my lunch." "That's a preference." "I need coffee." "Addiction." "I need oxygen." "Evasive." I sat back. "You always talk this much? You wouldn't know." "You usually cancel." That shut me up. Robert had asked me to the coast 3 years in a row, but the trips were only the visible part. He had invited me to concerts, dinners, a charity golf tournament neither of us would have enjoyed, and one deeply unfortunate evening of community theater. I had said no to most of them. Sometimes Claire needed something. Sometimes I was tired. Sometimes I had spent so long alone that leaving the house felt like an appointment I had forgotten to prepare for. "I'm going in May," I said. "I heard you." "I mean it." "I heard that too." We left the diner and went back to the outdoor store. Robert bought the blue chair. I bought the green one so he would not accuse me of copying him. At my house, he carried both boxes into the garage. "You have room for these now that the screws are under control," he said. They were never out of control. He set my chair beside the workbench. "You gonna call her again?" "I already left a message. That wasn't my question." "No." "Good." "You don't know anything about being a father?" "No, but I know something about being your brother." He hugged me before I could prepare for it, then got into his car and drove away. The paper bag for Elaine was still by the front door. I took the blue cardigan out and hung it over the dining chair again. It had become ridiculous. I was assigning meaning to a piece of knit fabric Claire probably bought on sale. I folded it into the bag and drove it to Elaine's house. She opened the door wearing gardening gloves. "You bought a camping chair," she said. "It was in the back seat. You weren't supposed to inspect it. You've never camped voluntarily." "I'm not camping." "Robert rented a house." "Then why do you need a camping chair?" "It collapses." "So does every chair if you work at it." I handed her the bag. "Claire's cardigan. Your pens." Elaine looked inside. "I forgot about those." I didn't. She pulled out the red pen. "You sound wounded. I'm teasing you." "You're not very practiced." I turned to leave. "She listened to your message," Elaine said. I stopped. "She didn't call back. I know. She played it twice." "How do you know?" "I was there." "Then she wasn't alone." "That isn't the same." "No," I said. "It isn't." Elaine removed one gardening glove with her teeth. "She thinks you've chosen this moment to teach her a lesson." "I'm not teaching." "You are, whether you mean to or not." "What lesson?" "That love has conditions. All relationships have conditions. Parents aren't supposed to say that part. Maybe that's how we end up here." She looked toward her backyard. There was dirt across her forehead, just beneath her hairline. During our marriage, I would have wiped it away. After the divorce, there had been several years when I would not have mentioned it. Now I pointed at my own forehead until she understood and rubbed at the spot. "Did Evan talk to her?" I asked. "Not really." "He took his things." She asked if he wanted to end the marriage, and he said he didn't want to make a decision while she was recovering. That sounds considerate if you don't listen to it. I told her the same thing. I looked at her. "What?" she said. "You think you're the only one who can make calm observations?" "No. You usually make them at a higher volume." She gave me the red pen back. "Keep it. It matches your personality." I left before she found a worse color. Claire called on Tuesday morning. I was in the garage assembling the chair I had bought already assembled because I had ignored the display tag. My follow-up is tomorrow, she said. I remember. I'm not cleared to drive. Do you need a ride? I can ask Mom. That wasn't my question. Yes, I need a ride. What time? 11. I'll pick you up at 10:30. She waited. I'm not asking you to come inside, she said. I didn't say you were. I just need a ride. I heard you. Okay. Neither of us hung up. Finally, I said, would you like to have lunch afterward? Why? Because people eat lunch. What do you want to talk about? I don't have an agenda. You always have an agenda when you say you don't. I was going to ask whether you wanted soup. I can make soup. I didn't ask if you could manufacture it. She sighed. I'll see how I feel. That was not yes, but it was not no. She was waiting in the lobby when I arrived. The gray socks showed above her shoes. I noticed. She noticed me noticing. I washed them, she said. I wasn't going to accuse you of theft. They're comfortable. They make your feet look enormous. Her mouth moved before she could stop it. The drive to the doctor's office took 12 minutes. Claire spent 9 of them looking out the window and 3 adjusting the air vent. In the waiting room, she filled out a form on a clipboard. Halfway down the page, her pen stopped. Are you still my emergency contact? She asked. The question made the magazines, the television, and a man coughing near the door seem louder. If there's an emergency, yes. That isn't what I asked. It's the answer I have. She looked down at the form. You were already listed, she said. They want confirmation. You can confirm it. Even after everything? I didn't resign from being your father. She checked the box. The doctor said she was healing well. The incisions looked normal, the soreness would improve, and she could return to most ordinary activity if she listened to her body. Claire thanked him and asked better questions than she had in the hospital. She did not look at me for answers. In the parking lot, I said, Soup? I need to go to the hardware store. For what? The bottom of the sink cabinet is warped. That isn't going to be fixed with a trip to the hardware store. I want to see if they sell replacement panels. They do. Can we stop? I looked at her. She crossed her arms. You offered lunch. I offered lunch. The store is beside the restaurant. You planned this. I need a panel. You need a carpenter. You know how to cut one. There it was. The familiar path, freshly swept. I'm taking you home. Her expression hardened. Seriously? Yes, it would take 20 minutes. For whom? What does that mean? It means you ask for help, as if only your time exists. You're already out. That doesn't make the rest of my day yours. She turned toward the car and walked ahead of me. We drove 3 blocks before she spoke. Evan says you're part of why he left. I kept my eyes on the road. What did he say? That I rely on you too much. That you make him feel incompetent. I didn't make him sit in a parking garage while you were in surgery. Her head turned. What? I should not have said it. Evan's confession had not been mine to use, but the words were already between us. He went to the condo, got your things, and sat in the hospital garage before coming upstairs. How long? Ask him, you know. Claire, how long? 45 minutes. She looked forward again. The color left her face. He told you that? Yes. When? He came to my house before he moved the rest of his things. Why? To ask me to be there. She laughed softly. So you talked about my marriage without me. He talked. I told him to talk to you. But you listened? Would you rather I had thrown him out? I would rather you stop deciding which kind of father you are, based on what makes you feel noble. I pulled into her building's garage. She opened the door before I had fully stopped. I invited you to lunch, I said. You refused to stop at a store. Those aren't the same thing. They're always the same thing with you. You offer what you want to give, then act hurt when it isn't what I need. She got out and shut the door. I sat there until she disappeared into the elevator. At home, I unfolded the green chair in the living room and sat in it while watching the sinkhole documentary I had slept through the night the hospital called. The chair was low enough that my knees nearly reached my chest. Robert had encouraged the wrong purchase. My phone rang near the end. Claire's name appeared. I answered. Mom is coming to dinner Friday, she said. Evan too. Why? Because I'm tired of everyone having separate conversations about me. That's reasonable. I want you there. The documentary showed a parked car dropping nose first into a hole. What kind of dinner? I asked. The kind with food, Dad. Who's cooking? I am. You're not supposed to lift anything heavy. I can lift a saucepan. Apparently you can also call a plumber. Are you coming or not? I looked at the green chair, the dark television, and the medication chart still on the table. Yes, I said, I'll come. Friday evening, I stood outside Claire's door holding the baked pasta Elaine had made and frozen at my house. Claire had asked me to bring a salad. I had brought the pasta too. Before I could knock, the door opened. Evan stood there with a dish towel over one shoulder. Behind him, 4 places had been set at the dining table. The empty space where the coffee maker had been was hidden by a vase of flowers. The dish towel made him look like a husband in a commercial. Claire said you were bringing salad, he said. I am. He looked at the casserole dish in my other hand. This is emotionally complicated salad. It was taking up space in my freezer. Evan stepped aside. The condo smelled like garlic and roasted chicken. Music played softly from a speaker near the window, something Claire usually listened to on Sunday mornings. Her shoes were beside Evan's near the door. For one foolish second, I wondered if he had come back. Then I saw the 2 cardboard boxes stacked beside the empty spare room. Claire walked out of the kitchen carrying a wooden spoon. She wore black pants, a loose cream-colored shirt, and enough makeup to suggest she wanted everyone to think she had not worn any. You brought pasta. You left it at my house. Mom made it. She also left it at my house. I asked you for salad. The salad is here too. I lifted the bowl. You can't bring 2 main dishes to dinner. I'm not aware of any laws. Evan took the casserole. I'll put it in the oven. Claire watched him carry it into the kitchen. There was a fragile ease between them, the kind that made me lower my voice even though nobody had asked. You look better, I said. I am better. Any pain? Not much. Are you sleeping? Dad. What? You've been here 30 seconds. I'm making conversation. No, you're taking inventory. I put the salad on the counter. Then how was your day? Fine, that's much better. She pressed her lips together. The doorbell rang. Elaine entered with a bottle of sparkling water and a bag of dinner rolls. She noticed Evan's shoes, the flowers, and the towel over his shoulder in one sweep. Well, she said, this is cozy. Hello to you too, Claire answered. Elaine kissed her cheek, gave Evan a brief hug that surprised him, and handed me the rolls as if I had been appointed storage. No wine? I asked. Claire's still taking medication. I stopped the strong one 3 days ago, Claire said. Nobody told me. You could have asked. Elaine looked at me. I looked at the ceiling. Evan returned to the dining room. Chicken needs about 10 more minutes. Did you cook it? Elaine asked. Claire did. I chopped. He also washed the knife, Claire said. Evan smiled. I'm useful now. Nobody laughed. Claire turned down the music. We sat before the food was ready because standing around the kitchen had become too uncomfortable. I took the chair opposite Claire. Evan sat beside her. Elaine beside me. The vase of flowers was low enough that we could see one another, which felt like poor planning. Elaine broke the silence first. Daniel is going to the coast with Robert. Claire looked at me. When? In May. You hate the coast. I hate sand inside shoes. The coast itself has done nothing to me. For how long? 4 days. With Uncle Robert? That's generally what "with Robert" means. I didn't know you two were close. We aren't. He's attempting an intervention. What about your plants? I own a watering can, not livestock. Claire looked down at her plate. You've never gone before. I'm going now. Why? The question carried more than the trip deserved. Because he asked. I ask you to do things all the time. I know. Evan got up to check the chicken. Claire's eyes stayed on me. What is that supposed to mean? Nothing. You asked why I was going. Because he asked isn't an answer. It was enough when you needed a replacement panel. Elaine made a small warning sound. Claire sat back. This is exactly why we're here. Because of cabinetry. Because you turn everything into a little test now. I didn't call this dinner. No, I did. Because nobody will speak to me honestly unless I put them in the same room. Evan returned with the chicken and set it on the table. The skin was darker on one side than the other, but it smelled good. Claire began serving everyone before she served herself. I want to say something, she said. Elaine reached for a roll, reconsidered, and put her hand in her lap. Claire looked at me. You took care of me after surgery, and I'm grateful. I know I said something that hurt you at the hospital. I've explained what I meant, and I've apologized for the wording. You haven't apologized, she blinked. I told you I didn't mean it. That isn't the same. Fine. I'm sorry I said you were only my father. Evan looked at his plate. Elaine watched both of us. Thank you, I said. Claire waited, apparently expecting more. When I didn't provide it, she continued. But since then, you've used that one sentence to justify withdrawing from me while I'm recovering and while my marriage is in crisis. You drove me home before I was ready, refused to help when my kitchen flooded, refused to be here when Evan came for his things, and discussed my marriage with him behind my back. That sounds comprehensive. Don't do that. Do what? Make a joke so you don't have to answer. I put down my fork. You were medically safe when I drove you home. I told you how to stop the leak, and your mother fixed it by hand. Evan came to my house. I didn't invite him. You still talk to him. You invited him to dinner. That's different. How? Because I'm here. That is different. She looked momentarily disarmed. Evan cut into the chicken. It's a little dry. Then use sauce, Claire said without turning. Elaine spooned sauce onto his plate. I said, I'm not withdrawing from you. I'm refusing to perform the part of your marriage that Evan stopped performing 6 weeks ago. I never asked you to. You called me for everything he used to do, and you made sure nobody knew why. I was trying to hold my life together. You were trying to make it look together. What difference does that make? One lets people help you. The other uses their help as scenery. Claire's face changed. Elaine touched my wrist under the edge of the table. I moved my hand, not sharply, but enough for her to let go. Evan stared at me. You don't get to put all of this on her. I'm not. It sounds like you are. Your turn is coming. This is not a trial, Claire said. Then why did you prepare an opening statement? She pushed her plate away. I wanted accountability. From me. Yes. Not Evan? He's accountable to me, not you. Then stop asking me to make him accountable. I asked you to stand in a room. You asked me to stand between you. Evan leaned forward. You have always stood between us. Claire turned to him. Excuse me? He has. Because you let him. Because you called him. Because things had to get done. There it is, Evan said. What does that mean? It means if I didn't do something exactly when you wanted, you called your dad. Then both of you acted like it wasn't about me. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes the sink was just broken. And sometimes I had already called a plumber, but you had Daniel come first because you didn't want to wait until Tuesday. I remembered the sink. Not the recent leak, but 2 years earlier. Claire had said Evan kept forgetting to call someone. You told me he hadn't handled it, I said. He hadn't handled it fast enough. Same thing, she said. No, Evan and I answered together. Claire looked from one of us to the other. Elaine reached for the sparkling water. This may be an excellent time for everyone to breathe. No, Claire said. Apparently my husband and father have discovered solidarity. I'm not on his side, I said. Thank you, Evan muttered. I looked at him. You left your wife and continued visiting just enough to let her believe you were coming home. You ignored the hospital calls because you didn't want to explain yourself, then used my presence to excuse your absence. Claire's head snapped toward Evan. Elaine stopped pouring. You ignored the calls? Claire asked. Evan's shoulders went rigid. We talked about the garage. We talked about it after Dad told me. You told her? He asked me. She asked. It wasn't your story to tell. It was my phone you declined. Claire's voice became very quiet. Did you know I was in the hospital before Dad texted you? Evan looked at her. Did you listen to my voicemail? Yes. What did I say? That you were sick and something was wrong. And you stayed at work. I thought it was another panic attack. I haven't had a panic attack in 4 years. You called me 3 times the night I moved out because you thought you couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. You could. You were scared. Oh, good. Then it didn't count. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. The chicken sat cooling between us. Elaine folded her napkin carefully. Claire, she said, your father should have told you what Evan said more thoughtfully. I don't need you to translate him. No. You need all of us to stop translating everybody. Claire laughed bitterly. And now, Mom has a lesson. I have a share in this, Elaine said. For years, whenever you needed something, I called your father because he was reliable and because asking him was easier than disappointing you. I looked at her. She met my eyes. I told him to be the bigger person so often that I stopped noticing it always made him smaller. Claire stared at her mother. So, this is a group apology to Dad? No, I said. It certainly feels like one. I should have said no years ago. To helping me, to pretending help had no cost. Her eyes filled. You all make me sound manipulative. I think you're scared, I said. I think every no sounds like abandonment to you, so you keep testing people until they leave or prove they won't. The tear slipped before she could wipe it away. And whose fault is that? She asked. Mine was the answer she wanted. Maybe it was even partly true. I wasn't the father you needed every time, I said. I worked too much. I went quiet when you needed questions. I fixed things because I was afraid of saying the wrong thing. You weren't afraid. You were comfortable. Yes, I said. Sometimes I was. She had no defense prepared for agreement. I continued. But my failures don't make me a service you can call forever and dismiss whenever my presence embarrasses you. Who said I was embarrassed? You did. At the hospital. Evan reached for Claire's hand. She pulled it away. Do you want to come home? She asked him. The room became absolutely still. Evan looked at her, then at the flowers he had brought. I don't know, he said. That isn't an answer. It's the truth. Do you want this marriage? I care about you. That is not what I asked. He rubbed his forehead. I don't want to come back right now. Claire nodded as if he had confirmed a dinner reservation. Then she looked at me. Are you happy? No. This is what you wanted, everybody being honest. Truth isn't a victory, Claire. It is when you're right. I stood and placed my napkin beside the untouched pasta. I'm going home. Of course you are, she said. I came to have dinner. I did not come to be tried until I apologized for having limits. If you walk out now, don't call me tomorrow. I picked up my keys. I won't chase you through a threat. Evan stood as if he might stop me. Elaine remained seated. At the door, I turned back. Claire sat at the table with her hands folded in front of her. She looked composed except for the tears on her face. I love you, I said. That is not the same as obeying you? She looked away. I closed the door quietly behind me. In the hallway, I realized I had left the salad bowl on her counter. For once, I did not go back for it. I drove home with the radio off and both hands fixed at 10 and 2, as if a driving instructor were hiding in the back seat. At a red light, my phone began ringing. Elaine? I let it ring twice before answering. Are you still there? I asked. No. Claire told us both to leave. Where's Evan? Probably at his hotel. And you, sitting in my car downstairs. I could picture her beneath the garage lights, still wearing the coat she had chosen carefully for a family dinner that had become anything but. How is she? I asked, humiliated. By whom? Everyone, from her point of view. The light changed. I drove another block before Elaine said, You could have stayed. For what? So she didn't end the evening believing everybody had walked out. She told you to leave. You've never been very good at hearing what people mean instead of what they say. That seems dangerous coming from you. What is that supposed to mean? It means when you said you wanted a divorce, I thought you meant you wanted a divorce. Elaine went quiet. I had surprised both of us. Daniel, she said, that was 12 years ago. I can count. Why are you bringing it up now? Because you just told me to ignore what Claire says and guess what she needs. That's what all of you expect. Say leave, expect me to stay. Say don't ask, expect questions. Say I'm only a father, expect me outside the operating room. I didn't say that. No, you said I make people guess by going quiet. Maybe I do. But the rest of you make me guess, then blame me for respecting the answer. A horn sounded behind me. I had stopped at a green light. I drove on. Elaine's voice softened. I wanted you to fight for us. You asked me not to. I was angry. I was afraid. That admission left me more exposed than anything I had said at dinner. Of what? She asked. That if I asked you to stay, you'd say no again? The line went silent except for the muffled hum of her car. I thought you didn't care enough to stop me, she said. I thought caring meant not trapping you. We were very bad at that conversation. We were excellent at avoiding it. She gave a short, sad laugh. At least we were excellent at something. I pulled into my driveway but did not get out of the car. I'm angry with you too, I said. For what? For calling me whenever Claire needed something because you knew I'd say yes. For telling me to be bigger whenever she hurt me. For making my willingness convenient for you. Elaine did not defend herself. I did that, she said. Yes, I'm sorry. I had imagined apologies from Elaine during the first few years after our divorce. In those imaginary versions, they arrived with explanations, regret, and a sudden realization that I had been right about everything. The real apology was 6 words spoken from a parking garage. It was enough to make me wish I had never wanted it. I'm sorry too, I said. For what? Too much to organize tonight. That sounds like you. Go home, Elaine. Are you going to call Claire? She told me not to. That wasn't what she meant. Then she can call and tell me what she means. I ended the call before either of us could spoil the small piece of honesty we had managed. The house felt especially still after the noise of dinner. I changed clothes, washed my face, and noticed a smear of salad dressing on my cuff. Claire's salad bowl remained in her kitchen, along with the food nobody had eaten. I made a sandwich. The television was showing the Sinkhole documentary again. I turned it off before anyone lost a car. Claire did not call the next morning. She did not call that afternoon either. At first, the silence felt like a test. I kept my phone beside me while I changed the oil in the lawnmower. I checked it after taking out the trash. Every time a truck slowed outside, I looked toward the front window. By the third day, the phone had stopped feeling like a test and started feeling like an empty chair. Robert came over with a tackle box that had belonged to our father. The metal hinges were rusted, and 3 fishing lures had welded themselves together in a mass of hooks and faded feathers. I thought we could take this to the coast, he said. It's going to require a tetanus shot. You like fixing things. I'm reconsidering. We carried it into the garage. Robert sat in the blue chair while I took the green one. My knees still sat too high. You picked badly, he said. You were present. I picked blue. We spent an hour separating hooks with pliers. Robert talked about the rental house, a seafood restaurant he remembered from a trip 20 years earlier, and whether we should hire someone to take us fishing. I don't care if we catch anything, I said. That's good, because I've seen you fish. He held up a lure shaped like a small silver fish. Dad bought this at Lake Harrison. I remember. He told everyone you lost the first one. You lost it. I was 12. I was 16. I was not responsible for you. You've been saying that since 1978. We laughed. It felt strange, and then it didn't. When the tackle box was clean, Robert looked at the guest room curtains through the open garage door. You waiting for her to call? Yes. You could call first. I could, but you won't. Not yet. He nodded. Do you miss her? The automatic answer would have been that Claire was busy, that we had spoken recently, that everything would settle down. Yes, I said. I miss her. Robert's face changed slightly. He looked pleased, which annoyed me. Don't act surprised. I'm not. You are. I've just never heard you say it while the person was still alive. I threw a rag at him. He caught it and folded it before placing it on the workbench. We made plans to have breakfast the following Saturday. Not tentative plans. No language about seeing how the week went. We picked a place and a time. After he left, I moved the medication chart from the dining table into a kitchen drawer. I did not throw it away. Claire finally sent a message that evening. Do you want your bowl? I typed, whenever it's convenient. Her reply came immediately. That's not an answer. Yes, I want the bowl. Fine. I looked at the word for a while. Then I wrote, I'd also like to see you. Dinner Thursday? The 3 dots appeared and disappeared twice. Lunch. That was all. We met at a cafe near her office. Claire was already seated when I arrived, wearing a navy blazer, and the expression she used when she wanted a server to know she had somewhere more important to be. My salad bowl sat in a paper shopping bag beside her chair. You're back at work? I asked. From home, mostly. I had a meeting nearby. You look tired. You look judgmental. I intended concerned. They're close cousins. I sat across from her. A server brought menus. Claire ordered iced tea without looking. I ordered coffee. Did you come for the bowl? She asked. I came because you agreed to lunch. You asked about dinner. I adapted. The corner of her mouth moved, then stopped. She looked thinner, not dramatically. Just enough that I noticed the angles around her face. Are you eating? I asked. I am literally holding a menu. Have you been eating? Yes. Okay, you don't believe me? I said. Okay. You say okay when you don't believe people. I'm learning a lot about my speech. She set the menu down. Evan wants counseling. That sounds useful. Not marriage counseling exactly. What kind exactly? Discernment counseling. I waited. It's for deciding whether to stay married, she said. I didn't know there was a specialized version. Apparently there is. How do you feel about it? Like, I want my husband to know whether he wants his wife without a professional giving him a worksheet. That makes sense. She looked irritated by my agreement. He says he isn't promising reconciliation. Then you know what he's offering. No, I know what he's refusing to offer. The server returned. Claire ordered soup. I ordered a turkey sandwich. When we were alone again, she folded her hands. I need you to talk to him. No. You don't know what I'm asking. You said talk to him. He thinks you're part of the problem. He may be right. She stared at me. I stepped in too often, I said. I made it easy for both of you to avoid working things out. Then tell him you'll stop. I already did. Tell him I won't rely on you like that anymore. That has to come from you. He won't believe me. Then show him. How? I don't know. She laughed bitterly. That's convenient. You help create this, then decide you're above it. I'm not above anything. I'm refusing to become evidence in your marriage. You could tell him the hospital made everything worse. You were angry, I was medicated, and then you pushed me until I said things I didn't mean. I didn't move him into a hotel 6 weeks before the hospital. No, you just made sure he felt replaceable for years. Claire. What? I did not make your husband leave. Her eyes shone. There. That's what you wanted me to say. What? That he left. You wanted me to admit it. I wanted you to stop making his absence my job. The soup arrived. Claire stared at it without picking up her spoon. I thought you asked me here because you missed me, she said. I did. Then why are we fighting? Because missing you doesn't make this conversation false. She looked toward the window. I missed you too, she said, barely loud enough to hear. I waited. You could have called. You told me not to. I said not to call the next day. You said tomorrow. I didn't mean forever. Then say what you mean. I don't always know what I mean when I'm angry. Neither do I. That's why I waited. She looked back at me. For 1 second, neither of us had a position to defend. Then she said, Will you talk to Evan? No. The wall returned. Claire reached into the shopping bag and placed the salad bowl on the table. Inside it were my gray socks, washed and folded. I should go. You haven't touched your soup. I'm not hungry. She stood, picked up her purse, and walked toward the door. Her keys remained beside the untouched soup. I took them and followed her outside. Claire. She turned. I held out the keys. She took them without looking at me. Thanks, she said. Then she walked away, leaving me with the bowl and the socks. I carried the bowl back to my car with the socks resting inside it. The socks made it feel as if I had been handed a verdict. At home, I put the bowl in the dishwasher and left the socks on the counter. Every time I passed through the kitchen, they were there, neatly folded and unreasonable. I finally carried them upstairs and placed them in the guest room dresser. The next morning, Robert was already in a booth when I arrived for breakfast. He had ordered coffee for both of us and arranged the little containers of jelly by color. You're becoming me, I said. I'm creating order. You mocked my screws. Your screws were organized by length, head, and emotional availability. I sat down. He looked at the clock on the wall. You're early. I'm 2 minutes late. You're early by family standards. The waitress came over. Robert ordered pancakes. I ordered eggs, then changed my mind and ordered pancakes too. He narrowed his eyes. Are you ill? I like pancakes. Since when? Since I stopped needing your approval. Big week. When the waitress left, he took a folded sheet of paper from his jacket. It was a list for the coast trip. Rain jacket, walking shoes, medication, flashlight, books, chargers. You put socks on the list, I said. People forget socks. I have socks. Are you sure? I looked at him. He smiled into his coffee. I told him about lunch with Claire. I left out the exact detail of the socks because he had already become irritating enough. You said no again, he said. Yes. And she left. Yes. But you had lunch. I ordered lunch. She moved soup around. That counts. You set a low standard. I'm your younger brother. I learned to celebrate scraps. He meant it as a joke, but it landed somewhere else. How often did I cancel on you? I asked. Robert stopped tearing open a container of grape jelly. You want a number? Not particularly. Then why ask? Because I'm trying to say something before it turns into an emergency. He looked at me over his glasses. I took a breath. I'm sorry. For what? For making you the person I could disappoint, because I knew you wouldn't leave. Robert put the jelly down. The waitress arrived with our plates, saving both of us from the immediate problem of responding. She set pancakes in front of us and asked whether we needed anything else. Robert said, "A moment." She backed away slowly. I poured syrup over my pancakes. You left my retirement dinner before the cake, he said. I looked up. Claire's smoke detector was chirping. She thought it might be electrical. It needed a 9-volt battery. I didn't know that when she called. You told me you'd be right back. I thought I would. You never came back. I remember driving to Claire's condo, finding Evan on the sofa with headphones on, and standing on a chair while she held a flashlight. I remembered the smoke detector. I did not remember the cake. I'm sorry, I said again. I know. No, you don't. I'm not saying I'm sorry that you were upset. I'm saying I chose the problem I knew how to fix over the brother I didn't know how to talk to. Robert stared at his pancakes. That's annoyingly specific, he said. I've been receiving instruction. Can you go back to being emotionally constipated? I'm trying to eat, I laughed. He reached across the table and took one of my strips of bacon. You're buying breakfast, he said. I assumed that when you apologized with my food. After breakfast, we walked through a used bookstore. Robert bought a guide to coastal birds, despite knowing nothing about birds. I bought a mystery novel because the cover showed a lighthouse, and apparently that was enough marketing for me now. Claire did not call that weekend. On Monday evening, my phone rang while I was cutting the plastic wrap off a frozen lasagna. Do you know what temperature chicken is supposed to be? She asked. 165? That seems high. It isn't. What if it rests? It should still reach 165. Are you sure? Yes. How do you know? I've been cooking longer than you've been alive. You cooked 4 meals when I lived at home. They were excellent meals. One was spaghetti, a respected food. I heard an oven door open. Are you having company? I asked. No. Then that's a lot of chicken. I'm making lunches. For work? Yes. How is work? Busy. I waited. She said, You can talk. I'm trying not to ask inventory questions. Work is busy. My boss asked why I was answering emails the morning after surgery. I told her I was bored. Were you? No? Okay. She waited. That okay means you don't believe me, she said. This time it means okay. I don't know how to tell anymore. Neither do I. Something beeped on her end. That's the oven, she said. Use a towel. I know how ovens work. I've seen evidence both ways. She laughed before catching herself. The sound disappeared quickly, but it changed the conversation. Dad? Yes? Do you think Mom wanted you to fight for her? The question stopped me with one hand on the lasagna wrapper. She told you we talked? No. She said something at dinner about translating people. I've been thinking. Your mother wanted a lot of things she didn't ask for. So, yes, why didn't you? Because I was proud, because I was scared, because she said she wanted to leave, and believing her meant I didn't have to risk asking her to stay. That sounds like Evan. It might. It also sounds like me. That's for you to decide. I hate when you say that. I'm learning to enjoy it. She checked the chicken and announced it was 1:58. Give it a few minutes, I said. Are you really going to the coast? Yes. When? Next Thursday. That's soon. I suppose that's why Robert keeps sending me weather reports. What are you going to do there? Sit in a badly chosen chair. Look at birds. You don't like birds. I have no position on birds. She was quiet for a moment. I hope you have a good time, she said. It was the first generous thing she had said about the trip. Thank you. The chicken reached 165. She sent me a photograph of it as if I had supervised a successful landing. We spoke twice more that week. Neither call began with something broken. The first began because Elaine had given Claire a houseplant she insisted was impossible to kill, and Claire wanted to know whether I considered that a challenge or a warning. The second began because she had watched the end of the sinkhole documentary and believed the engineering explanation was nonsense. She was wrong, but I let her finish. It would be easy to say those calls fixed something. They did not. We moved carefully, avoiding the hospital, Evan, and the dinner. Every conversation had a thin place we could both feel beneath our feet. Still, she called. Elaine stopped providing updates unless I asked directly. When I asked how Claire was, Elaine said, Call her. When I asked whether Evan had attended counseling, she said, Ask him. You've become unhelpful, I told her. I'm withdrawing my labor. That sounds familiar. I had a good teacher. Robert came over 2 nights before the trip to inspect my suitcase. You packed 3 flashlights. They're small. We're renting a house with electricity. Electricity has been known to fail. He removed 2 and placed them on the bed. You packed dress shoes. There might be a nice restaurant. At the coast, civilization extends to water. He held up a button-down shirt. We're going for 4 days, not beginning a new life. You asked me to go. I'm beginning to regret it. The green chair was strapped into the back of his car. The clean tackle box sat beside it. For the first time, the trip felt like something that would happen rather than something I had agreed to in theory. Claire came over the following evening without calling first. I opened the door and found her on the porch with her hands empty. No leak? I asked. Not currently. Furniture stable? As far as I know. Then I'm confused. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She noticed the suitcase near the stairs. You're really packed. Robert conducted an inspection. Did you pass? Barely. I lost 2 flashlights. She walked into the living room and stopped at the green chair. What is that? A mistake. She sat in it. Her knees rose nearly to her chest. This is terrible. It collapses. So do most chairs if you work at it. I looked at her. Mom said that, she admitted. I knew it sounded familiar. Claire got out of the chair and sat on the sofa. I waited for her to explain why she was there. She looked toward the dark television, then at the medication chart no longer on the table. Evan and I had the second counseling session. How did it go? He said he doesn't trust that anything will change. What did you say? That I'm changing? Do you believe that? I cooked chicken. Then the marriage is saved. She gave me a tired look. I told him I understood why he felt replaced, she said. I told him I used you to avoid waiting for him or being disappointed by him. That sounds honest. He said honesty after someone leaves is easy. Was he wrong? I don't know. She picked at a loose thread on the sofa cushion. The counselor asked what I thought would happen if I stopped calling you every time something went wrong. What did you say? That things wouldn't get done. And then she waited. Professionals do that. I hate it. I know. Claire looked at me. I think I said it at the hospital because I didn't want the nurse to know he wasn't coming. The room seemed to narrow. Said what? You know, I want you to say it. Her eyes dropped. That you were only my father. I sat in the recliner. I knew they called you because I chose you, she said. I put you in my phone. I kept you there after I got married because I knew you'd answer. I did not rescue her from the silence. When the nurse asked if you should get updates, it made me feel like everybody could see that my husband wasn't there. So I made you smaller. Her voice shook. If you were only my father, then maybe Evan being absent didn't look as bad. That hurt, I know. I need you to understand that it still hurts. She nodded. I'm not asking you to forgive it tonight, she said. That was closer to an apology than anything she had given me, but she had not said the words. I noticed. I also noticed my old impulse to accept less, so she would not have to remain uncomfortable. I let the silence stay. Why did you come here? I asked. I didn't want to go home yet. Are you hungry? A little. I made sandwiches. She sat at the kitchen table while I packed extra batteries into my suitcase and pretended not to notice when she took my gray socks from the guest room drawer. At 10, she stood to leave. Have a good trip, she said. I intend to. Call me when you get there. I will. She paused at the door. I know you don't have to. No, I said, I don't. She left wearing the socks. This time, I let her keep them. Robert leaned on the horn at 7:58 the next morning. I was standing in the kitchen with my suitcase by the door and Claire on the phone. Say it again, I told her. He doesn't want to continue counseling. That isn't what you said before. She made a sound that was half breath, half sob. He wants to end the marriage. The refrigerator hummed behind me. Outside, Robert tapped the horn again, shorter this time. When did he tell you? Last night, after you left here. He was waiting at the condo. Is he there now? No. Are you alone? Yes. Are you safe? Stop asking me that. I need the answer. I'm safe. Did you sleep? A little. Have you eaten? No. I looked at the clock on the stove. Robert and I leave in 20 minutes, I said. You can come here and talk until then, or we can stay on the phone. The silence that followed had shape. You're still going? Yes. Dad. I'm listening. My husband told me our marriage is over. I'm sorry. And you're going to sit in a folding chair and look at birds. That's part of the plan. How can you say that? Because both things are true. She began crying harder. The old response moved through me like instinct. Tell Robert I couldn't go. Put the suitcase away. Drive to her condo with coffee, tissues, and an answer neither of us had. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table. I have 20 minutes, I said. Tell me what happened. I don't want 20 minutes. That's what I have right now. I want my father. You have me. For 20 minutes. Yes. That isn't enough. It doesn't have to be enough for everything. It's what I can give before I leave. She took a shaky breath. If I said I needed you, would you stay? You do need me. That isn't an answer. I'm not canceling the trip. So, Robert matters more. No, this is not a ranking. It feels like one. Because you're hurting. Hurt turns every choice into evidence. Robert got out of his car and walked toward the house. Through the window, I saw him notice me on the phone. He stopped on the front walk. Claire said, Evan told me he loves me, but he doesn't trust us together anymore. What did you say? I told him trust can come back. What did he say? That he's been waiting for a year. That must have hurt. He had his suitcase. I closed my eyes. He brought a suitcase to end it? He had more things in the hall closet. He took them. What did you do? I asked him to stay until morning. He said that would make it worse. Did he stay? No. What happened after he left? I sat on the kitchen floor for a while. Did you call anyone? I called you. Before me. No. Elaine? No. Why not? Because I wanted you. That answer was honest enough to hurt both of us. Robert came onto the porch but did not knock. He sat on the top step with his back to the door. I'm here now, I said. You're leaving. I'm still here now. Claire's crying quieted. I thought if I could get him into counseling, he'd remember who we were, she said. Maybe he did. That's a terrible thing to say. I don't mean he remembered only the bad. Maybe he remembered all of it and still reached a decision. You agree with him. I don't know enough to agree. You never know enough when I want an answer? Because you want certainty, and I don't have it. I want you to tell me I'll be okay. I looked at the suitcase, the paper list Robert had given me, and the red pen clipped to the refrigerator with a magnet. You will not feel like this forever, I said. That's not the same. It's what I know. She breathed in slowly. What am I supposed to do today? Eat something, shower, call Elaine if you don't want to be alone. Don't make any large decisions. Come here. No. The words sat there. Claire cried again, but this time she did not argue immediately. I hate you for this, she whispered. You're allowed. You're not supposed to say that. What am I supposed to say? That you know I don't mean it, do you? She went quiet. I don't know, she said. That's honest. I looked at the clock. I need to go in 5 minutes, then go. I'll call when we arrive. You don't have to. I know. That answer had been hers the night before. I heard her recognize it. Dad? Yes? I'm going to call Mom. Good. Have a safe drive. Eat something. I will. We ended the call. I stayed at the table for another minute, staring at the blank screen. Then I carried my suitcase outside. Robert stood when I opened the door. We can leave later, he said. No. We can leave tomorrow. No. You sure? No, I said. Let's go. He took my suitcase and put it in the back of his car without asking what had happened. For the first hour, we barely spoke. Robert drove. I watched familiar buildings give way to shopping centers, then warehouses, then long stretches of wet fields. My phone rested in the cup holder. It did not ring. At a gas station, Robert handed me a paper cup of coffee. This is bad, I said after tasting it. It was free. It cost you something. The cashier said it came with the fuel, then the car should drink it. He leaned against the hood. Claire? Evan ended the marriage. Robert looked toward the highway. She asked you to stay. Yes. And you came anyway. Yes. How do you feel? Like a bad father? You're not. That was fast. You can feel like one without being one. Have you been reading the Bird Book for philosophy? There are several wise warblers. I looked down at the coffee. Part of me wanted her to notice I left, I said. That's the part I don't like. You wanted your absence to count. Yes. That's not the same as wanting her to suffer. It's close enough to make me uncomfortable. Good. Stay uncomfortable. Just don't build a house there. We got back into the car. The ocean appeared 4 hours later, as a flat gray line beyond the dunes. Robert lowered his window and announced he could smell salt. I smelled fish, sunscreen, and the paper bag of pretzels he had dropped between the seats. The rental house was smaller than the photographs and painted a shade of yellow usually found on warning signs. There were 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a porch facing a narrow strip of water. Robert unfolded the blue chair. I unfolded the green one. Mine sank 3 inches into the sand and tilted left. Robert sat down carefully. Excellent purchase. I hate the coast. You've been here 8 minutes. We carried the chairs onto the porch where the floor was less judgmental. I called Claire. She did not answer. I left a message saying we had arrived safely. I did not ask her to call. 10 minutes later, a photograph appeared on my phone. Toast, eggs, and a cup of tea sat on her kitchen counter. I ate. I typed, "Good," then changed it to, "I'm glad." She responded with a picture of my gray socks on her feet. Robert looked over my shoulder. "Are those the missing socks? Mind your business." I put socks on the list. We spent the afternoon walking along the beach. Robert carried the bird guide and identified every gray bird as a gull until a woman with binoculars corrected him. At dinner, he ordered something called a fisherman's platter and complained that most of it had been fried. "What did you expect?" I asked. "Fish. It's under the fried part." He took a bite. Good. I was worried. Claire called while we were waiting for the check. "I'm at Mom's," she said. "All right." She made soup. "Your mother makes excellent soup. She says yours is better. She's lying to comfort you." "I know." There was a small pause. "Did you see any birds?" she asked. "Several. Robert believes they're all the same one following us. It had a distinctive personality." She heard him and almost laughed. "Did you call Evan?" I asked. "No." "Are you going to?" "Not tonight. That sounds wise. I keep wanting to ask him one more question." "What question?" "The one that makes him change his answer." I understood that more than I wanted to. "I don't think there is one," I said. "I know." We stayed on the phone for 5 more minutes. She asked what we ate, whether the house was clean, and if the green chair remained terrible. She did not ask me to come home. The next day, Evan called me. I was on the porch cleaning a fishing reel while Robert attempted eggs in the kitchen. "Did Claire tell you?" Evan asked. "Yes. I didn't plan to do it last night. You arrived with a suitcase. I needed things. You also needed courage, apparently." "I know. That stopped me." He sighed. She looked so hopeful after counseling. I realized letting her keep hoping was another way of hiding. "Have you spoken to her today?" "She won't answer. She's with Elaine. Is she okay?" "Call her." "I don't want to make it worse. That sentence has done enough work for you." He was quiet. "I do love her," he said. "I believe you. She thinks leaving means I never did. That's hers to work through. Will you tell her?" "No." "Dan, I am not the bridge between you anymore. If you love her, tell her. If you're leaving, tell her clearly. Accept that both can hurt." He breathed out. "I'm sorry about the hospital," he said. "You should tell Claire." "I have. Tell her again." I ended the call. Robert came onto the porch carrying 2 plates of eggs with black edges. "What happened?" "I'm retiring from translation." "Good. Eat these." "What happened to them?" "Heat." I ate them anyway. We stayed all 4 days. We fished and caught nothing. We found the seafood restaurant Robert remembered, which had become a store selling decorative pillows. We argued about directions, got lost, and discovered a pier we would not have seen if I had insisted on being right sooner. On the last evening, we sat on the porch beneath 2 blankets while wind pushed across the water. "I'm glad you came," Robert said. "So am I." "That wasn't emotionally difficult enough. Try again. I missed you." He looked at me. "Now you've ruined it," he said. When I got home, the house did not feel empty. It felt like mine. Claire called while I was unpacking. "Can you have dinner Thursday?" she asked. "Yes, at my place." "All right. I'm cooking chicken." $1.65, I remember. "What should I bring?" "Nothing." That makes me nervous. No salad, no pasta, no tools. Now I'm frightened. She was quiet for a second. "It's just dinner," she said. Thursday evening, she opened the door, wearing jeans, a soft gray sweater, and my socks. The flowers were gone from the table. A small pour-over cone sat in the empty space where Evan's coffee maker had been. 2 places were set. Claire took a breath. "Before we eat," she said, "I need to tell you something without explaining it away." "I'm sorry," she said. I waited. She glanced toward the kitchen where something hissed in a pan. "I'm not supposed to explain." "You can turn down the stove." "No, I mean, I'm trying not to use an explanation as an eraser." She took another breath. I'm sorry I said you were only my father. I knew exactly who you were. I knew you were the person the hospital called because I had chosen you. I knew you came faster than Evan would, even before he moved out. Her eyes stayed on mine. I was ashamed. The nurse kept asking about my husband, and every time she looked at the empty door, I felt like everyone could see that my marriage was already falling apart. You were standing there with my insurance information and my allergy history, doing everything a person who loved me would do. Instead of being grateful, I made you smaller so his absence wouldn't look as large. I did not move. She rubbed her thumb along the side of her index finger. I'm sorry I reached for your hand right after I said it. I knew it hurt, and I still expected you to comfort me. I'm sorry I acted like the medication made me do it. It didn't. The pan in the kitchen gave another sharp hiss. Your chicken, I said. It can burn for a minute. It has already sacrificed enough. She almost smiled, then held herself still. I used your help to hide what was happening with Evan, she continued. I didn't ask you to lie in words, but I asked you to fill every empty place so nobody would notice. Then when you stopped, I called it punishment, because that was easier than admitting how much of my life I had handed you. Her voice shook. I told Mom you abandoned me after surgery. That wasn't true. I was safe. I was angry because you wouldn't keep making me feel safe in every other way. Did you tell her that? Yes. Did you tell anyone else? My friends from work. I'd told 2 of them you threw me out. I raised my eyebrows. I know. What did you tell them? That I had stayed with you beyond the time the doctor required, that I was well enough to go home, and that I said something cruel because my husband didn't show up. How did that go? One of them said she'd wondered why I kept changing the subject whenever anyone asked about Evan. That sounds uncomfortable. It was. She folded her arms, not defensively, but as if she needed to hold herself together. I'm not asking you to say it's fine. It wasn't. I'm not asking you to go back to how things were. What are you asking? If we can build something that doesn't require me to break an appliance before I call. The answer came too quickly. I made myself pause. Yes, I said. But I have things to apologize for too. Her expression tightened. You don't have to make this equal. I'm not. I put my hands in my pockets. I made usefulness my way into your life because it was easier than asking whether you wanted me there. When you called with a task, I didn't have to wonder. I showed up, solved something, and left, before either of us had to risk a real conversation. Claire looked down. I also liked being the reliable one. Evan was right about that. Maybe I didn't mean to make him feel incompetent, but sometimes I enjoyed knowing you trusted my answer more. He was wrong plenty of times. That is not helping my confession. He measured the dining room incorrectly. So did the furniture store. They weren't married to me. I let that go. I should have said no before I became resentful, I said. I should have told you the hospital words hurt without waiting 3 days and turning every glass of water into evidence. I drove you home angry, even if you were medically safe. I told myself it was a boundary, but part of me wanted you to feel my absence. Did you? Yes. She absorbed that without flinching. I'm sorry, I said. Not for going home, for pretending none of that anger was in the car with us. Claire nodded. The smoke detector chirped. We both looked toward the ceiling. No, she said. I laughed before I could stop myself. It needs a battery, I said. I changed it yesterday. Did you change the right one? There are 2. There are always 2 when you're confident. I moved toward the hall. She stepped in front of me. No tools. It's a smoke detector. You are a guest. It's chirping. I will handle it. With what? She opened a drawer in the side table and held up a package of batteries. I bought 6. That seems excessive. I'm compensating. She changed the battery while I turned down the stove. The chicken had not burned, but the sauce had reduced to something close to adhesive. I added water before Claire came back. Did you touch my sauce? She asked. It was becoming a building material. No tools include spoons. That was never stated. We ate at the table that had once made Evan feel measured twice. The chicken was dry. I did not say so. Claire cut a piece, chewed, and reached for her water. It's dry, she said. It's very safe. 165 and beyond. She laughed, and this time she did not stop herself. After dinner, she made coffee with the small pour-over cone. It took longer than the machine and produced less coffee, but she seemed proud of it. Evan says I can keep the old machine, she said. He offered to bring it back. What did you say? That it was his. You handed it to him. That is how gifts work. I know that now. She poured the coffee slowly. Are you going to continue counseling? I asked. Not together. We had one final session. How was it? Terrible. Useful. Terribly useful. Sounds expensive. It was. She brought the mugs to the table. We're ending the marriage, she said, not pausing, not taking space. Ending? I'm sorry, I know. Do you want to talk about it? Not tonight. All right. She looked at me over her coffee. You can ask again another time. I will. And if I call because something breaks, you can say no. I can also say yes, I know. That might be the harder part. She understood. A boundary was simpler if it was a wall. What we were attempting required doors. Before I left, she asked whether I was still willing to be her emergency contact. Yes. Because you're my father? Because you asked, she nodded. Dinner next Thursday, she said. At my house. Are you cooking? I make 4 excellent meals. Name them. Thursday will be a surprise. It's spaghetti. It might not be. It was spaghetti. The following Thursday, Claire arrived with garlic bread and no object requiring repair. She walked through the house, noticed the medication chart was gone from the table, and said nothing about it. We ate. We argued about the sinkhole documentary. She told me Evan had signed a lease on an apartment instead of extending the hotel. I told her Robert had already selected dates for another coast trip, even though he had spent most of the first one complaining about sand. The week after that, Claire canceled dinner because of work. She did not invent an emergency to make the cancellation acceptable. She said, I'm sorry, I'm exhausted and I want to go home. I said, all right. She called the next morning because she worried I was offended. I was disappointed, I told her. Are you mad? No. Do you want to reschedule? Yes. We rescheduled. It sounds simple because it was simple. Simple was new for us. There were setbacks. Claire called one Saturday when her car would not start and became angry when I said, Robert and I were already halfway to a hiking trail. You know more about cars than the roadside assistance person, she said. That person has a truck. You have cables. I'm not leaving Robert on the side of a mountain. It's barely a mountain. That's not helping. She hung up, called roadside assistance, and apologized that evening without being asked. Another time, I fixed the loose handle on her pantry door after she told me 3 times that she had already called someone. She accused me of not trusting her to handle it. She was right. I apologized and left the replacement screws in my pocket. Claire hired a carpenter to replace the warped panel beneath her sink. She sent me a photograph when it was done. Looks good, I wrote. She called immediately. That's all? What else would you like? He cut the edge unevenly. I noticed. You said it looked good. It does. You're impossible. I'm adapting. Elaine adapted too. She stopped calling me to mediate disagreements with Claire. I stopped agreeing with her, merely to keep the peace. We had coffee once a month and occasionally discussed the divorce without turning it into a competition over memory. There was no reunion. There was something better suited to the people we had become. Honesty without expectation. Evan came to my house once. He brought the blue casserole dish Claire had used for the dinner and left in one of his boxes by mistake. I suspected Claire had told him to return it, though he claimed he was in the area. We stood on the porch. I apologized to her about the hospital, he said. Good. I'm sorry to you too. For which part? He considered that. For knowing you would show up and using that as permission not to. I nodded. I helped make that easy, I said. That doesn't make it your fault. No, it makes it my part. He looked toward his car. She thinks I hate her. Do you? No. Then keep telling her until she can hear it. Just don't tell her in a way that sounds like you might come back. He nodded. You're still giving advice, he said. You came to my porch. Fair. He left the casserole dish with me. I brought it to Claire at dinner. By late summer, the divorce was moving through its necessary steps without becoming the center of every conversation. Claire had hard days. Sometimes she called me, sometimes she called Elaine, sometimes she sat alone and discovered that loneliness could be survived without being disguised. Robert and I kept our Saturday breakfasts. He continued stealing my bacon. 3 months after the coast trip, an eye doctor informed me that the cloudy vision in my right eye was a cataract and not, as I had suggested, poor lighting throughout the entire county. The surgery was minor. The clinic scheduled it for a Tuesday morning and told me I would need someone to drive me home. I asked Robert. Claire learned about it during dinner. You asked Uncle Robert? He has a car. So do I. He's already agreed. She pressed her lips together. I watched the old interpretation rise, that I did not trust her, that I was excluding her, that my choice had to measure her value. She let it pass. Can I be the backup? She asked. You don't have to. I know. That answer belonged to both of us now. All right, I said. You can be the backup. The morning of the procedure, Robert arrived early enough to complain about the clinic parking. He stayed through registration and promised the nurse he would return before discharge. The surgery took less time than the paperwork. Afterward, I sat in a recliner wearing dark plastic glasses while a nurse repeated instructions I had already received 3 times. No driving today, she said. I've been informed. No lifting more than 20 pounds. I own very little worth lifting. Use the drops according to the chart. There's a chart? She pointed to the paper in my hand. I was hoping to escape charts. She did not understand the joke. My phone buzzed. Robert had sent a message. Car battery died. Getting a jump. 30 minutes. The nurse looked at the clock. We'll need your ride here before we release you. I have a backup. I called Claire. She answered before the first full ring. Are you okay? I'm fine. Robert's battery died. I'm in the parking lot. I lowered the phone. You're what? I came early. Why? Because backups arrive before they are needed. That sounded suspiciously familiar. 5 minutes later, she appeared around the curtain, carrying the jacket I had left in Robert's back seat that morning. You forgot this, she said. How did you get it? Uncle Robert gave it to me, while a man with jumper cables questioned his understanding of vehicle maintenance. He'll appreciate that description. The nurse came over with a wheelchair. And you are? She asked Claire. Before Claire could answer, I said, She's my daughter. Claire's eyes moved to mine. The nurse checked her name against the discharge information. She'll need to stay with you for a few hours. I know, Claire said. I brought the eye drops, sunglasses, water, and the instructions he pretended not to need. I did not pretend. You folded them into your pocket without reading them. I read headings. The nurse smiled and helped me into the wheelchair. Claire placed my jacket across my knees. As she pushed me toward the exit, she leaned closer. No only, she said softly. No. Outside, the afternoon sun was painfully bright, even through the dark glasses. Claire helped me into her car without making me feel helpless, which turned out to be a skill of its own. At my house, she set the eye drops on the kitchen counter and unfolded the instructions. I can manage, I said. I know. You don't have to stay all afternoon. I know that too. She began making coffee. I stood in the kitchen doorway, one eye covered, watching her move around a house where she no longer needed to invent a problem to belong. Claire? She turned. Stay until the coffee's done. Her face softened. I was hoping you'd ask, she said.